Chapter 22-24. After Tran Hung left, King Yowu led his men to clean up the Crimson Sky Realm. The Crimson Sky Realm was not very large and was relatively close to the mysterious Sky Realm in the 9 Sky World group, so it was not very difficult to clean it up. Knight Sorrow did not know about these things, but he was more at ease. Tran Hung and King Yowu were fighting together, so it would be a violent battle. Even if there were casualties in the battle, it would be over quickly, and it would not have much impact on the war between the Celestial Realm and the Demon-Winged Clan. In fact, the spies sent by Mo Yuqing really received the news, mainly because the Celestial Realm had mobilized a lot of troops this time. After Mo Yuqing passed the news back, Mo Zhantian felt that it was an opportunity and immediately notified Mo Yuqian. The two planned to break into the Celestial Realm. What was the result? The result was that the two were repelled by Tran Hung. If not for the fortress of the Demon Imperial City, it would be difficult for the two to come out unscathed. This situation made Mo Zhantian very angry, but he did not blame Mo Yuqing. He was sure that the Heavenly Wasteland City was relatively empty. The news was correct, but with Tran Hung there, it was impossible for the Demon-Winged Clan to take it down. Mo Zhantian was a little nostalgic. If the 3 great heavens were here, then the 3 of them would fight together and take down the Heavenly Wasteland City now. Mo Zhantian was very clear about Mo Tianji's battle strength. After instructing Mo Yuqing to continue to scout for information, Mo Zhantian and Mo Yuqian went into seclusion again. This time, the unlucky Mo Zhantian was once again struck by Tran Hung. Tran Hung was also more fortunate. He had only returned to the Heavenly Wasteland City for 6 hours, and the Demon-Winged Clan had already attacked. If the battle in the Crimson Sky Realm had really delayed him, or if he had returned a little later, the consequences would have been serious. In the world of trees, Knight Sorrow was shuttling through the summer space. Ordinary people might be annoyed, but Knight Sorrow was not. He knew that he had to be patient at this time. There were many summer worlds, but there would always be an end. If there was no change, he would still pass through these space lines. Knight Sorrow, Lin Yun's true body, which was originally in seclusion, has come out. She received some good news. The battle in the Scarlet Night Realm is nearing its end. The Vice-Realm Lord of the Scarlet Night Realm was killed. The Realm Lord's body was destroyed, and more than half of his soul force was annihilated. The other legions of Crimson World are being wiped out. Wu Lingfei, whose doppelganger was in the camp of the God-slaying squad, heard some news from Lin Yun's doppelganger. Good news. The Crimson Sky Realm is a hidden danger. It can be said that there is no threat now. That Realm Lord's body was destroyed, and more than half of his soul was destroyed. For a short period of time, there shouldn't be any threat. Knight Sorrow said. He was also relieved in his heart. There is another worrying matter. After dealing with the Realm Lord and Vice-Realm Lord of the Crimson Sky Realm, Lord Tran Hung returned to the Heavenly Wasteland City. Not long after, Mo Zhantian and Mo Yuqian of the Demon-Winged Clan came to attack. Fortunately, they were repelled by Tran Hung. If Lord Tran Hung returned late, the consequences would be unimaginable. Wu Lingfei said. It seems that the spies of the Demon-Winged Clan are still very active. This is a great danger, but it won't be easy to eliminate them. Knight Sorrow thought for a moment and said. I don't know who is commanding the spies of the Demon-Winged Clan in the Celestial Realm. They should have some brains. Heavenly Concubine said. Mo Zhantian and Mo Yuqian are not brainless people. The leader of the spies they sent to the Celestial Realm must be good at scheming. In addition, they can also directly command. Knight Sorrow said. Should be, but they shouldn't be able to hide for long. As long as they are active, there will be flaws. I'm just afraid that they won't be active. Wu Lingfei said. She was the domain lord of the Eastern Xian domain of the 9-domain world. As a commander, some of her analytical abilities were very strong. She also had some foresight. Imperial Concubine's insight is also a cut above others. That is the truth. If they don't move, there won't be any flaws. As long as they are active, it will be easy to catch them. Heavenly Concubine looked at Wu Lingfei and said, "Heavenly Concubine, this is just my personal opinion," Wu Lingfei said with a smile. As they chatted, Night Sorrow continued to move forward. He realized that his body was still evolving. Its strength was still at the level of the tribulation of the 4 emperors, but its charm was different. Night Sorrow could feel that its flexibility had increased a lot. After entering another space, Night Sorrow and the other 2 encountered an enemy. It was a demonic beast with a destructive aura around it. This is a fierce jackal. It is good at soul attacks and illusions, Heavenly Concubine said. Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei didn't recognize this demonic beast that had just appeared. This demonic beast was covered in black fur. Its limbs, knees, legs, and facial features were full of scales. Its ugly face was full of smiles. That smile was somewhat unreal, but it was very terrifying. Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei quickly set up a defense in the Divine Sea. They knew that Heavenly Concubine wouldn't speak without thinking. The fierce jackal in front of them was frighteningly strong. Night Sorrow could see that it was the cultivation level of the tribulation of the 7 emperors. Look at 01R edition, Chapter Z Section S Section. Up. While Night Sorrow and the other 2 were defending, the fierce jackal began to attack. It directly pounced at Night Sorrow and the other 2. Night Sorrow's right hand shook, and the Samsara halberd pierced out. It was directly the beginning of the Great Destruction slash. The difference in strength between him and the fierce jackal was huge, so he used his ultimate move. Whoosh! Night Sorrow's attack missed. The fierce jackal swept past Night Sorrow and its sharp claws scratched Night Sorrow's shoulder. It tore Night Sorrow's robe apart and left 5 claw marks on his left shoulder. The fierce jackal didn't tear Night Sorrow's body apart, but some of its energy still rushed into Night Sorrow's flesh and caused a certain amount of damage. Then, Night Sorrow's Merit Dao body activated and forced the energy out of his body. Be careful. The Heavenly Concubine took out her long sword and prepared for battle. She didn't make a move directly because the fighting power she could display was limited. The amount of energy she could display here determined the amount of suppression and rejection she would receive. However, the vicious jackal was different. The vicious jackal itself was a product of this world. After Night Sorrow withstood the fierce jackal's first move, he quickly released his Dao domain. He had to use his Dao domain to suppress the fierce jackal's speed. Inside the Dao domain, his speed could also increase. After using his Dao domain, Night Sorrow's speed increased. Although he was still a bit slower than the fierce jackal, he could already deal with the fierce jackal's attacks. The fierce jackal's facial features squeezed together. Its terrifying smile constantly seeped into the hearts of Night Sorrow and the other 2. At the same time, it let out chattering laughter. Illusion, mental attack. Night Sorrow knew that the fierce jackal's smile and laughter were attacks. Those who were timid would be scared to the point of their soul collapsing. Night Sorrow's Samsara halberd kept attacking. At the same time, he was thinking of a way to defeat the fierce jackal. He was indeed in a passive position. Chapter 22-25. Night Sorrow nodded, and then used Soul Extinguishing Slash. Night Sorrow's Soul Extinguishing Slash was fast enough, but it was blocked by the fierce jackal's soul defense. The fierce jackal's soul attack was strong, but its defense was different from the Heavenly Concubine's estimation. Night Sorrow's Soul Extinguishing Slash didn't cut through its defense, but the negative illusion produced by the Soul Extinguishing Slash still affected it. The battle became a battle of soul illusions and negative states. Night Sorrow's soul illusion was a negative attack. It was to make the opponent indulge in it and lose the ability to fight. The fierce jackal's soul attack was a terrifying influence. Its laughter and laughter were like a nightmare, attacking Night Sorrow and the other 2's minds. This was because the Heavenly Concubine's soul level was high, so she wasn't affected too much. Wu Lingfei had her racial talent, so her soul defense wasn't bad. Night Sorrow had the 9 domain origin pearls defense, so the fierce jackal's terrifying soul attack didn't have any effect. If it was any other cultivator, even if their cultivation was higher than fierce jackals, they would still be out of luck. This was because once they lost their mind, even if fierce jackal didn't use any other attacks, the terrifying nightmarish soul attack would cause their soul to collapse. After the soul attack, the pressure on Night Sorrow and the other two lessened a bit. When the fierce jackal was defending, the terrifying nightmare attack's power was also reduced a bit. Merit Primordial Tao Domain. Night Sorrow released the power of Merit to support his primordial Tao domain. Then, he used Space Crack continuously to restrict the fierce jackal's movement speed and position. Next, he used Primordial Shattering Slash. After the terrifying soul attack was ineffective, and its speed and movement space were restricted, the fierce jackal panicked a bit. It panicked because it was afraid of the heavenly concubine. It had the cultivation of the tribulation of 7 emperors, so it was afraid of the heavenly concubine. While the fierce jackal was thinking, Night Sorrow's attack arrived. Following a muffled sound, one of the fierce jackal's front claws was annihilated by the energy of Night Sorrow's reincarnation halberd. Night Sorrow's primordial attribute and the reincarnation halberd's destruction attribute wasn't something the fierce jackal could withstand. The fierce jackal was good at soul attack and speed, but its body's strength and the energy inside its dantian weren't outstanding. Therefore, it was at a disadvantage when facing Night Sorrow's all-out attack. Shadow Body, Space-Time Realm. After injuring the fierce jackal, Night Sorrow used his movement technique. In an instant, he instantly chased after the flying jackal, and attacked again. At this moment, the fierce jackal was still suffering damage from Night Sorrow's attacks. Its body flew backward, and it couldn't use its speed. It could only use its claws to block again. With another muffled sound, the vicious jackal's other front paw was destroyed by Yi Shang. However, when the vicious jackal was sent flying, it used its hind legs to kick Yi Shang's abdomen and chest. Then, it used the momentum to fly, recklessly rushing out of the spatial world. Under Yi Shang's soul force's detection, it entered another spatial line. This guy is too scary. Yi Shang, are you okay? Wu Lingfei asked Yi Shang. At that moment, Night Sorrow was in a sorry state. The fierce jackal's final kick was something he had completely endured. His precept domain had been shattered, and his robes had been torn apart. 2 bloody wounds had appeared on his chest and abdomen. His internal organs had been shaken, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. I'm a little injured. This fellow is indeed very powerful. Its terrifying soul attack can seep into the depths of our souls. If we can't withstand it, our minds will collapse, Night Sorrow said with a nod. Yes. If your soul defense is weak, even if you are only affected, if you don't handle it well, its terrifying laughter and voice will become a heart demon and nightmare. It will stay in your heart forever, said Heavenly Concubine. Night Sorrow got Heavenly Concubine and Wu Lingfei to wait for him. He entered the clear sky pagoda and began to recover with time acceleration. The fierce jackal's attack before it fled was very heavy. If it was an ordinary cultivator of the 4 emperors' tribulation, I'm afraid they would have died, said Heavenly Concubine as she looked at the clear sky pagoda that stood to the side. I can't help much. Really? Wu Lingfei shook her head helplessly. She felt very powerless. She had seen the battle very clearly and knew that it was useless even if she helped. Translator, Timothy_editor, Globeglotter. I can fight, but the result is that I will be repelled by the energy of the world of trees after I attack. Heavenly Concubine shook her head. Their current situation was different from Night Sorrow's. Night Sorrow had the Merit Tao body and Merit Tao domain, so he could suppress the energy produced by the battle. It wouldn't cause any major problems, and there wouldn't be any side effects. However, Heavenly Concubine and Wu Lingfei's battle had this drawback. Wu Lingfei and Heavenly Concubine stood motionless. When they didn't move, the repelling force they received wasn't too serious. They just stood there and waited for Night Sorrow to recover. While he was healing, Night Sorrow realized that not only were his internal organs shaken, but he was also poisoned. The fierce jackal's claws were extremely poisonous. When the fierce jackal used its strength to kick, it left 2 bloody wounds on his chest and abdomen. Then, the poison began to invade his body. He didn't pay too much attention at that time, but now he realized the existence of the poison. After activating the Merit Dao body, Night Sorrow realized that the fierce jackal's claws contained a very strong poison. It constantly collided with the reincarnation energy in his body. The poison wanted to destroy his body, but the reincarnation energy in his body blocked it near his wounds, not allowing it to take any further action. In a stalemate, Night Sorrow's reincarnation energy could only suppress the fierce jackal's poison and prevent it from spreading. It was more difficult to get rid of it. It's still very stubborn. Fire of Virtue. After muttering, Night Sorrow activated the Fire of Virtue to burn the flesh near his wounds. After the Fire of Virtue appeared, it rushed towards the already black flesh. Night Sorrow controlled the Fire of Virtue so that it wouldn't harm his own flesh. It began to burn and remove the foreign matter inside his flesh. The Fire of Virtue was the most young, the most unyielding, and the most righteous fire. The fierce jackal's poison was mean and evil enough, but it still couldn't contend against the Fire of Virtue. It was slowly forced to retreat. Night Sorrow's chest emitted black smoke. The black smoke squeaked, but after being surrounded by the Fire of Virtue on the surface of Night Sorrow's body, it couldn't run away. After waiting for a while and seeing that Night Sorrow didn't come out, the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei rushed towards the clear sky pagoda. Night Sorrow's clear sky pagoda was open to the two of them. They could freely enter and exit. After entering the clear sky pagoda, the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei saw an astonishing scene. Night Sorrow's upper body was naked. There were 2 pitch-black wounds on his chest and abdomen. The wounds were squirming like 2 black poisonous snakes lying there. Moreover, black smoke was constantly emitting from the wounds. The black smoke was squirming inside the flames as if it was alive. It wasn't as if it was alive. If one looked carefully, the black smoke was alive. After being burned by the Fire of Virtue, the black smoke emitted a terrifying sound that made one's heart tremble and teeth turn cold. Let's go out. The heavenly concubine pulled Wu Lingfei out of the clear sky pagoda. Heavenly concubine, Night Sorrow was poisoned? Wu Lingfei's face was full of shock. She didn't know what that terrifying black smoke was, but she felt that it was poison. Chapter 22-26. The heavenly concubine pulled Wu Lingfei out of the clear sky pagoda as she was worried that Wu Lingfei would be affected by the poison. Just by looking at it, she knew that there was something wrong with the poison. Night Sorrow has the body of merit and the fire of merit. He will be fine. Let's wait for a while. Wu Lingfei shook her head. Although she was very worried about Night Sorrow, she had to comfort the heavenly concubine first since the heaven's fate was blaming herself. The heavenly concubine nodded. She naturally understood Wu Lingfei's good intentions. Night Sorrow realized that the poison in the poisonous jackal's claws was very overbearing. It even had intelligence and self-awareness. Its subjective consciousness was to destroy its own body, and those that were forced out of its body wanted to run away. Night Sorrow's fire of merit kept burning in his body, forcing the poison out of his body. Those that were forced out of his body were wrapped in the fire of merit, but he did not continue to burn them. If he increased the intensity of the burning, the poison would struggle fiercely. This way, Night Sorrow would not be able to focus on healing. This was a very long process. The heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei waited for 4 days. Half a year had passed in the clear sky pagoda's time acceleration. The 2 ladies anxiously entered the clear sky pagoda again. They were really worried about Night Sorrow. When they saw Night Sorrow again, they realized that Night Sorrow's condition was much better. The wound on his abdomen was gone, and there was only a black spot on his chest. On top of Night Sorrow's head was a pitch-black poisonous snake, but it was wrapped in the fire of merit. This is no longer a poison, it is a poison spirit. Luckily, Night Sorrow has the fire of merit, otherwise, even the 7 sovereigns' tribulation or 8 sovereigns' tribulation's cultivation would be unlucky if the poison spirit touched him. He would have to give up his body and die under the 7 sovereigns' tribulation. Seeing that Night Sorrow was fine, the heavenly concubine felt more at ease as she explained to Wu Lingfei how powerful this poison spirit was. Seeing that Wu Lingfei did not understand, Mo Tianji explained to her what a poison spirit was and why it was so overbearing. The so-called spirit meant that it had some spirituality and had its own thoughts. The poison spirit was a poisonous creature that had its own consciousness and thoughts. Naturally, it was extremely domineering. When it came into contact with other things, it would erode them. Once it was done, it would become nutrients for its growth. Ordinary poison spirits could only erode the cultivator's body. The more powerful ones would enter the cultivator's soul through the body and destroy the cultivator's soul. The poison spirit above Night Sorrow's head should be a high-level poison spirit. Night Sorrow's body is very strong. He did not give it a chance to enter the divine sea after it took over his body, the heavenly concubine said as she looked at the black snake above Night Sorrow's head. What is the relationship between the poison spirit and the poison jackal? Wu Lingfei asked. They were born to complement each other. The poisonous jackal is a naturally poisonous creature, and the poison spirit was born to depend on it. Just now, the poisonous jackal ran away quickly, and the poison spirit entered Night Sorrow's body and did not leave in time. This resulted in the current situation. It looks like this poison spirit cannot escape, said the heavenly concubine as she looked at the fire of merit on Night Sorrow's body. Feeling that he was almost there, Night Sorrow no longer used the fire of virtue to defend himself. Instead, he wrapped up the remaining poison in his chest and separated it from his body along with a small pinch of flesh. At this moment, all the poison in Night Sorrow's body had been cleansed completely. Night Sorrow opened his eyes and looked at the poison spirit above his head. Then, he nodded at Wu Lingfei and the heavenly concubine. Do any of you know what this thing is? It is very difficult to deal with. If we are not careful, we will lose our lives. Stay away from it. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. The heavenly concubine told Night Sorrow everything she knew. It was born from heaven and earth. It looks like it has a strong background. Luckily, the fire of merit is its nemesis. Otherwise, I really would not know how to deal with it. Not only is this fellow poisonous, but it also has the same destructive attribute as the vicious jackal. Night Sorrow narrowed his eyes as he sized up the poison spirit, who was moving back and forth within the fire of merit. That is not a vicious jackal, it is a poisonous jackal. It is even scarier than the vicious jackals recorded in history books. That thing is very vengeful and is also very smart. I think it will not let this matter rest and will take revenge on us, the heavenly concubine said. It is too fast, it is very difficult to deal with it. Once the poison spirit leaves it, it will no longer have any poison in its body. It will be less of a threat. The next time it comes, we will think of a way to kill it. Night Sorrow could not think of a way to deal with that poisonous jackal. As long as we can control it, it will be easy to deal with it. Next time, Night Sorrow, use your human emperor's seal to suppress it and then control its movements. This way, we will be able to use small amounts of energy to attack it. The heavenly concubine said what Jiang Yi was thinking. Night Sorrow nodded as he continued to control the fire of merit and started to burn the poison spirit. The poison spirit was too domineering, it was a scourge. Jiang Yi had to get rid of it. Also, there was no way he could subdue it. The poison spirit had some spiritual intelligence, but it was not so intelligent that it would listen to orders. It was just that it could instinctively attack. With the help of the human sovereign seal and the canon of merit, Yishang spent 2 months refining the 2 poison spirits. In the end, he left behind a pearl. The heavenly concubine told Night Sorrow that the pearl was a treasure. It depended on how it was used. The poison pearl could release poison and also absorb hundreds of poisons. If someone was poisoned, they could use the poison pearl to absorb the poison. Night Sorrow gave the poison pearl to Wu Lingfei. He had the merit Dao body and was almost invulnerable to poison. The heavenly concubine's cultivation level was high, she could also ignore some poisons. The 3 of them exited the clear sky pagoda and continued to move forward. However, they were much more careful now. A poisonous jackal was already so ferocious. If they were not careful, they could easily fall. When they entered the second spatial world, the heavenly concubine sent a voice transmission to Night's Sorrow that the poisonous jackal was tailing them. It is like a haunting soul. What a detestable nightmare. I want to tear that terrifying face apart. Night's Sorrow cursed in a low voice. The poisonous jackal's squeezing face with an evil smile made him feel extremely disgusted. Its face and voice can cause fear and irritation in the bottom of your heart. Pay attention and don't be affected. Let's see how we cooperate to kill it. The heavenly concubine said. Night's Sorrow was thinking of a solution. If this poisonous jackal was not dealt with, it would be a disaster sooner or later. It was too vengeful. If they were not careful, it would be easy to be ambushed by it. It could even jump out and bite them during other battles. This guy is too cautious and smart. How can we let it take the bait? Wu Lingfei said. The three of them knew that this was a problem. Jackals have a weakness, and that is their lust. They are all incomparably lustful. The heavenly concubine's voice was a bit low. I won't consider that. Night's Sorrow hesitated for a moment. He could not let the heavenly concubine or Wu Lingfei go and seduce that disgusting poisonous jackal. Night's Sorrow, you're thinking too much. It won't succeed. I'll do it. The heavenly concubine smiled and said. No. No one can do it. I'll think of a way to solve this. Night's Sorrow looked at the heavenly concubine and shook his head. Whether it was the heavenly concubine or Wu Lingfei, he would not allow such a strategy. Chapter 22-27. Night's Sorrow, don't reject this idea. It's actually a strategy. When we enter the next spatial world, I'll change my appearance and hide my cultivation. I'll wait in one place while you guys wait in the spatial treasure. Once it takes the bait, you'll attack at the right time. Don't let its rotten claws touch me, or I'll be disgusted to death. The heavenly concubine smiled. Night's Sorrow still wanted to say something, but the heavenly concubine shook her head. She felt that this method was feasible. She also wanted to help. She had pride in her heart. Before, she wasn't a weakling who followed behind anyone. She didn't want to be an irresponsible person in Night's Sorrow's heart. Wu Lingfei also shook her head at Night's Sorrow. We just need to be careful. That poisonous jackal can't threaten the heavenly concubine. Without saying anything else, Night's Sorrow led the two women forward. After leaving this spatial world and entering the next spatial line, Night's Sorrow and Wu Lingfei entered the clear sky pagoda. The heavenly concubine put the pagoda in her robe and flew for a while before finding a place to rest. At the same time, she shook her energy and changed her appearance to Wu Lingfei's. She took off her veil and deliberately hid her cultivation. Then, she took out a teapot to make tea. Wu Lingfei's soul power sensed all of this and let out a sigh. You're a very good friend. Actually, I'm the most suitable bait to lure that poisonous jackal. Heavenly concubine, you're worried that I'll be in danger, so you changed your appearance to replace me. Let's be more careful. Don't let her be in danger, not even a little bit. Night's Sorrow said. Don't think too much about it, you too. Have you noticed? The closer we get to the world tree, the denser the energy in this space becomes. It really is a natural place for cultivation. The heavenly concubine's soul power communicated with Yishang through the clear sky pagoda. Yes, but the world tree doesn't reject it. How are you now? Night's Sorrow asked. After entering this spatial world, Night's Sorrow and Wu Lingfei had entered the clear sky pagoda. They didn't have the time to experience this spatial world. The heavenly concubine sensed the space and said to Night's Sorrow, the pressure is okay. It's mainly because I've covered my body with my soul power. I've pushed my spirituality to the max, so it's okay. If I fight and use more power than a high-level tribulation emperor, I'll be expelled. Night's Sorrow didn't say anything. His doppelganger appeared from his body. Then, He and his doppelganger both held weapons. He was ready to fight because the heavenly concubine couldn't use her true fighting strength right now. The venomous jackal had appeared, but it had used an illusion to hide itself in the folded space. If one didn't pay close attention, they wouldn't have noticed it. Night Sorrow and the other two had stopped by to deal with it. Naturally, they had discovered its tracks. The heavenly concubine was drinking tea while observing the surroundings. She even took out a cloud bed from her storage ring and leaned on it to rest. Heavenly concubine, your posture is really seductive. I think the venomous jackal won't be able to resist. Seeing the heavenly concubine's posture, Wu Lingfei smiled. She was mainly trying to ease the atmosphere. It's okay. Although there are some things I haven't experienced, I still know some things. The heavenly concubine didn't deny Wu Lingfei's words. She wanted to seduce the venomous jackal. Naturally, she had to work hard to achieve this goal. She could casually display a seductive posture. Although she knew that Night Sorrow was watching, she was a bit embarrassed. Heavenly concubine, it will pay a price. It will die an ugly death. Night Sorrow promised. He was a bit annoyed. The heavenly concubine had to pay a big price for a beast. Of course, Night Sorrow also knew that this wasn't just about killing the venomous jackal. The venomous jackal's existence was a threat to their next move. When other threats appeared, the venomous jackal would join forces with other opponents to deal with them. It was necessary to deal with it in advance. The venomous jackal slowly got closer. At the same time, it carefully probed. The venomous jackal was sly and cunning. The reason it wanted to chase after Night Sorrow and company was that it hated Night Sorrow a lot. Night Sorrow had destroyed its 2 front claws. Another reason was that the poison spirit had left it. Its poison's power had decreased greatly. It had to find the poison spirit. Mo Tianji lay on the cloud bed. She pressed the scabbard of her long sword under her body. She could draw her sword at any time. Seducing the venomous jackal was one thing. She also minded if the venomous jackal looked at her closely. Hence, when the time was right, she would strike. Night Sorrow's soul spirit spread out in the form of a Dao domain. He observed the venomous jackal's every move. The venomous jackal's disgusting, smiling face was locked on by him. Night Sorrow, don't get too worked up. Let it enter our attack range. We have to kill it in one strike. We cannot give it a second chance to escape. If you think I'm at a disadvantage, when you smash its face, destroy its eyes as well. The heavenly concubine's eyes were naturally the venomous jackal's eyes. I will. I'll smash its crooked mouth. If it still smiles, it won't be able to smile in the future. Night Sorrow nodded. The venomous jackal was very sly. However, its lust was its fatal weakness. When it noticed the heavenly concubine's presence and her alluring figure, it was slowly losing its sense of caution. Night Sorrow's grip on the samsara halberd tightened and relaxed. He was already prepared for battle. Disgusting. Wu Lingfei cursed. The venomous jackal was indeed shameless to a certain extent. In the illusion realm, its male characteristics were very obvious. It was very ugly. Night Sorrow didn't say anything. He was waiting to fight and kill. The heavenly concubine was also very angry. She somewhat regretted using this strategy because the venomous jackal's current appearance was blasphemy to her. It was an insult. The closer the venomous jackal got to the heavenly concubine, the lower its vigilance. The heavenly concubine was a woman who had lived for 9 eras. She understood human nature and beastly nature. Regardless of whether she raised her hand or raised her foot, it was filled with temptation. Of course, beneath this was an infinite killing intent. Only she knew the anger in her heart. When the venomous jackal pounced towards the heavenly concubine made her move. The long sword under her body drew an arc of lightning and pierced towards the venomous jackal's head. At this time, Night Sorrow appeared. His main body and avatar appeared at the same time. 2 soul-extinguishing slashes and 2 spatial rifts that restricted the venomous jackal's movement were released at the same time. Then, the Samsara halberd used the beginning to shattering slash towards the venomous jackal. The avatar also used the blood Chelan vanquishing evil spear. The venomous jackal dodged the heavenly concubine's sword but was struck by Knight Soro's Samsara halberd. When it retreated, Knight Soro's avatar's blood Chelan vanquishing evil spear pierced through its back. After the successful attack, Knight Soro's avatar's left hand grabbed the venomous jackal's hind leg. After swinging it, he fiercely smashed it down. At the same time, he used his knee to smash it upwards. Following a cracking sound, the venomous jackal's ribs and sternum were broken by Knight Soro's attack. Damn bastard, you dare to have ideas about anyone. A sword light flew towards the venomous jackal's crotch. Chapter 22-28. Accompanied by the pitiful cry of the poisonous jackal, its ugly thing flew out along with the sword light. Immediately after, it was cut into pieces by the heavenly concubine's second sword chi. Bastard, I will let you die, and I will not let you die a happy death. The heavenly concubine suppressed her anger, and with these 2 swords, she vented a bit of her anger. Knight Soro's clone not only grabbed the poisonous jackal's hind legs with his left hand, but his right hand also let go of the blood Chelan execution evil spear. Both of his hands grabbed the poisonous jackal's hind legs and continuously smashed them. The ground was not hard enough, so Knight Soro used his knee to smash it. Not only his clone, but his main body also came over and attacked the poisonous jackal with his clone. When Knight Soro's clone smashed the poisonous jackal's head on his main body's knee, the poisonous jackal's face became a mess of flesh and blood. Knight Soro's body was very tough and powerful. This was something that no cultivator could compare to. Even the Divine Beast clan could not compare to him. He used all of his strength to smash the poisonous jackal's head on his knee, causing the poisonous jackal's face to shatter and its skull to shatter. After knocking the poisonous jackal unconscious, Knight Soro's main body Samsara halberd went for its head. Don't worry, I will kill it. The heavenly concubine reached out and stopped Knight Soro. She wanted to do what she said. Seeing the heavenly concubine's angry and cold face, Knight Soro's main body flashed. His left hand grabbed the blood Chelan execution evil spear that was still stuck in the poisonous jackal's back. Then, he stabbed it into the ground and used all of his strength to grab the legs of the poisonous jackal. Wu Lingfei, who had stabbed the poisonous jackal, also stopped. Only the heavenly concubine was left to kill. The poisonous jackal kept screaming and struggling, but because it was tightly controlled by Knight Soro, it did not have a chance to escape. It could only passively be slashed by the heavenly concubine. Each slash brought great pain to it. The heavenly concubine was a woman, and a woman's nature was to hold grudges. The poisonous jackal looked at her with blasphemous eyes, causing her to be extremely angry. After slashing a few hundred times, she finally finished it off. Have you vented your anger? Knight Soro looked at the heavenly concubine and asked. He was also very unhappy in his heart. Venting my anger, my mood is a lot better. Heavenly concubine said with a smile. Although she was still a bit angry, she understood that her emotions directly affected Yi Shang and Wu Lingfei, so she didn't show it. After putting the poisonous jackal's crystal core, the heavenly concubine also took a piece of the poisonous jackal's skull. Knight Soro with the concubines of the heavenly concubine's skull core. Kam Devi, the true core with chi with the concubine is with Knight concubine. For hashtag Yong hashtag FGOC free look, little slash say, I these things Knight, S Dons Lu. Concubines concubine, Knight S, Knights, Knight concubines and concubine. What do I need these things for? They're useless to me. If I need more resources, I'll ask you again. The heavenly concubine smiled. She liked Knight Soro's generosity. Knight Soro didn't look at her with disdain at all. She was someone who had surrendered and swore to serve the 9-domain world. There was only respect. The heavenly concubine was very grateful for this. That's fine. Just tell me what you need. I'll definitely give it to you. If not, I'll think of a way. Night Sorrow said. Heavenly concubine, Night Sorrow is absolutely sincere to his friends. Of course, not everyone is qualified to be Night Sorrow's friend. Wu Lingfei said with a smile. Yes, this is the charm of personality and character. Otherwise, why is Night Sorrow the human emperor but not others? Because he's trustworthy. He's worthy of the trust of the billions of beings in the 9-domain world and the celestial realm. I'm no exception. The heavenly concubine nodded. Through her understanding, the heavenly concubine knew that Night Sorrow's character was excellent. Being friends with Night Sorrow was definitely a fortunate thing. You guys are praising me in front of my face. It's embarrassing. Let's continue forward. I feel that the repulsive force is weaker. Night Sorrow felt the energy around him. The repulsive force in that space was very strong. This space is very weak. It shouldn't be. The closer we get to the world tree, the stronger the repulsive force should be, the heavenly concubine said. Night Sorrow raised his head and looked at the world tree in the hazy space. He shook his head. He didn't understand the situation. It was his first time experiencing something like this. If the heavenly concubine didn't know, he naturally wouldn't know either. After pausing for a bit, the three of them continued forward. However, Night Sorrow and the heavenly concubine released their soul power. They were worried about a sudden threat. After moving forward a few more spaces, Night Sorrow and the other two discovered that the repulsive force of the space's energy toward the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei was much weaker. However, it was still the same for Night Sorrow. It should be because we are getting closer to the world tree. She can feel your spirituality. That's why the repulsive force toward you is decreasing. For me, she already knew that I had the Virtue Tao body. That's why the repulsive force hasn't changed. After analyzing the situation, Night Sorrow gave his own conclusion. Perhaps that's the case. This is good. The two of us can relax a bit. The heavenly concubine nodded and said. Night Sorrow and the other two continued forward. They kept passing through the dense space lines. This allowed them to see the world tree's defensive power. The heavenly concubine told Night Sorrow that as long as the world tree wanted to, it could break through the virtual space. The creatures in the space, even if their cultivation was high, would be pushed into the space turbulence even if they weren't killed or heavily injured. This is the power of a peerless treasure. Perhaps it can't be described as a treasure. The world tree is the most miraculous life form in the world, Night Sorrow said. The heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei agreed with what Night Sorrow said. The three of them didn't know what level the world tree was at, but they knew that the world tree was undeniably powerful. The heavenly concubine also told Night Sorrow that the world tree's defensive power was strong, but in terms of offensive power, it wasn't very strong. For example, the destruction of the space world wouldn't do much damage to the tribulation of the 7 emperors. That was because the attack power wasn't enough. However, the world tree could prevent its opponents from getting close. If you broke a space line, it would create another one. This was why Tran Hung said that using force wouldn't work. Unless one was strong to a certain extent, they could destroy the space worlds that blocked their path. However, reaching that level was easier said than done. The heavenly concubine couldn't do it. We want the world tree to settle down in our world. We're here to invite her. There's no need to use force and fight with her, Night Sorrow said. Yes, we're here to invite her. We're not here to fight her. It would be best if we can convince her. The heavenly concubine nodded. She knew that Night Sorrow's idea was correct. The three of them kept moving forward. Life forms from the space worlds appeared frequently. Chapter 22-29. Night Sorrow's body was strong and could contain a lot of energy. This was something other cultivators couldn't compare to. For example, Night Sorrow could absorb the origin energy from the world tree, but the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei couldn't. Feeling his injured body, Yi Shang began to recover in the accelerated time inside the clear sky pagoda. He knew that the stronger his body was, the more helpful it would be for him in the future. If his body was truly immortal, then passing the god-destroying tribulation would only be a matter of his soul. This time, Night Sorrow was seriously injured. It took 10 days in the real world, but almost 2 years in the clear sky pagoda to fully recover. His body's strength had already reached the peak of the fourth emperor tribulation, surpassing his realm. Seeing Night Sorrow's condition, the heavenly concubine nodded with praise. According to the current trend, when you reach the 6th Emperor Tribulation and the 7th Emperor Tribulation, your body will be unparalleled. There's still a long way to go. How are you guys? Were you attacked in the past few days? Night Sorrow asked the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei. We were attacked twice, but it wasn't serious. We can still fight by controlling our cultivation. However, you still have to bite the hard bone. The heavy burden is on you, the heavenly concubine said. She knew that the success of this trip depended on Night Sorrow. She felt that her and Wu Lingfei's chances weren't high. They were only halfway through the journey. If we work together, there's nothing we can't do. Aunt Fei, send your clone back with the team. Tell Lin Yun to inform Tran Hung to pick you guys up. You guys will be easily attacked by the other races outside, Night Sorrow said to Wu Lingfei. Night Sorrow was worried. Putting aside the dangers inside the world of trees, some cultivators couldn't enter, but the god-killing team and the First Army were in danger. If people from other ancient worlds appeared, then they would become targets. It would be easy for them to be in big trouble. In Night Sorrow's heart, they were all his brothers and sisters. Nothing could happen to them. The entrance to the ancient world had a ceiling formation. Night Sorrow could bring his men in and out without any problems, but the others could not. Therefore, Night Sorrow asked Lin Yun, who was in Tianhuang City, to call for Tran Hung. Wu Ling concubine and heavenly concubine understood Night Sorrow's worries. They also knew how important siblings were to Night Sorrow. Wu Lingfei's clone notified Lin Yun and waited. After receiving the news, Tran Hung greeted King Yewu and took Lin Yun to the Misty Dynasty. They arrived at the entrance of the ancient world and brought the god-slaying team and the first troop back to the celestial realm. Tran Hung said to Wu Lingfei, Imperial concubine, take your men and take a look around the celestial realm. The spies of the Demon Wing clan are still active. See if you can catch them. When I return, I will send Elder Zhai Xing and the diviner to cooperate with you. Tran Hung, thank you for your concern. We will work hard. Wu Lingfei cupped her hands towards Tran Hung, don't mention it. Your parents and I are friends. If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want to embarrass Night Sorrow, you should have called me uncle. Tran Hung said with a smile. Night Sorrow called Wu Lingfei Auntie Wu Lingfei, so it wasn't easy to be Wu Lingfei's elder. It's two different things. Night Sorrow is friends with many elders in the celestial realm. If you really want to link them together, it will be very troublesome. Even Ling Fei doesn't dare to. Wu Lingfei shook her head. She knew that Tran Hung and Night Sorrow were good friends. Tran Hung had always let Night Sorrow call him elder brother, but Night Sorrow respected him and didn't do so. In addition, in the celestial realm, Night Sorrow was the human emperor. No one dared to be Night Sorrow's elder, but no one could be Night Sorrow's elder. This was also related to fate and fate. If one didn't have virtue and merit, being the human emperor's elder would ruin one's fate. Wu Lingfei didn't have this concern. When Night Sorrow was weak, the two of them called each other that way. They also had that kind of relationship. When Night Sorrow practiced the doppelganger technique, he called Wu Lingfei Auntie. This was also recognized by the heavens. Okay, if there's anything, go to Tianhuang City and find Uncle. Tran Hung nodded to Wu Lingfei and left. This was a special time. He couldn't leave Tianhuang City for too long. Tianhuang City was an important place in the celestial realm. He couldn't afford to lose it. After knowing that the god-slaying team and the First Army had left the ancient world and that the ancient world was sealed again, Night Sorrow felt a lot more at ease. Night Sorrow's doppelganger led the way while his original body led the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei behind. Night Sorrow, now I understand why you can get along with your wives even though you have so many at home. It's because you're a trustworthy man. You have the responsibility of a man, said the heavenly concubine. Night Sorrow smiled and shook his head. He never lacked responsibility. If he had to shoulder something, he would shoulder it. After advancing for a while, the battle started again. Because the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei had released their spirituality, the repulsive force wasn't that strong. They could also fight. It feels good to be able to fight. I feel like after the battle, I can absorb some origin energy. It's not a lot, and it won't harm my body. It's very beneficial, said Wu Lingfei. The heavenly concubine nodded. She had the same feeling. After the battle, when she absorbed energy after the battle, the energy contained origin energy. It seems like I need to fight more to improve. It's the same for me. When I fight, I use the energy in my body so that my body can absorb more origin energy. Night Sorrow nodded. He always had this feeling. He didn't say it out loud because he felt that the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei couldn't absorb origin energy. Look at the original Carrot Chapter 0 and the Three's goal was the World Tree. When they found that there was a battle that could be solved, they didn't retreat. Instead, they started fighting. We're not in a hurry. Let's cultivate and advance. This is good, said Night Sorrow. As they advanced, Yi Shang and the other two experienced improvements. Not in terms of cultivation base or cultivation base, but in terms of life force and cultivation base quality. Their bodies and true energy now contained the essence of the world. This was something that would normally be very difficult to achieve, and they would never have the opportunity to do so. 2 months later, Night Sorrow and the other two had passed 2/3 of the virtual space set up by the World Tree. During these 2 months, the three of them fought almost every day. After another battle, Night Sorrow's cultivation level and true energy cultivation level didn't advance, but his body did. He had reached the level of tribulation of the 5 emperors, which surpassed both his true energy cultivation level and his soul cultivation level. Night Sorrow went into seclusion to stabilize his cultivation. Outside the clear sky pagoda, Wu Lingfei looked at the heavenly concubine. Heavenly concubine, I want to go through the tribulation. Can you guard me? Sure. Your cultivation exceeds your realm. If you suppress it too much, it will delay your cultivation speed. The heavenly concubine nodded. She could naturally see Wu Lingfei's situation. Wu Lingfei's realm was 7 Emperor Tribulation, but her actual cultivation was 9 Emperor Tribulation. This kind of suppression could stabilize her foundation, but it would slow her cultivation speed. Wu Lingfei was a talented golden phoenix. Even 8 Emperor Tribulation wasn't difficult for her, so she passed it smoothly. The demon beasts attracted by the lightning tribulation were destroyed by the heavenly concubine from afar. It didn't affect Wu Lingfei's tribulation. Wu Lingfei then entered the clear sky pagoda to stabilize her cultivation. At this time, Night Sorrow came out of seclusion. Chapter 22:30. It was common knowledge that one's energy cultivation couldn't exceed one's realm. Wu Lingfei and some other cultivators who suppressed their lightning tribulations had cultivation that exceeded their realm, but in reality, it was just that they hadn't passed their lightning tribulations. Their soul realm was there. Night Sorrow's energy cultivation had exceeded the soul realm. It had truly broken the common sense of cultivation. Breaking this common sense was the legendary path to prove one's Tao through strength. This was also the reason why the heavenly concubine was shocked. A few days ago, the energy in Night Sorrow's body had exceeded his realm, but it was still within the same realm. It wasn't too bad. Now that he had surpassed one level, he had broken through that taboo line. That taboo line was the proof of using strength to prove one's Tao. Because soon, Night Sorrow's realm would naturally increase due to the energy in his body. How are you? Night Sorrow looked at the heavenly concubine and asked. I'm different from you. You have a lot of room for improvement. Right now, I can only cultivate a clone and walk the path of soul unification. This is the only way to increase my realm and also the only space. The heavenly concubine said. She was envious because in her era, it was very difficult to increase one's cultivation and realm. But now, Knight Sorrow and the people around him had their cultivation soared by leaps and bounds. Take it slow. It's not bad to absorb the origin energy like now and let your body's quality increase. Also, how's your clone nurturing going? Knight Sorrow took out a jar of wine and handed it to the heavenly concubine. Then, he sat down. The heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei paid more attention to their daily lives. While Knight Sorrow was stabilizing his cultivation in the clear sky pagoda, they had set up a tent and a tea table. It's already formed. I just need some time. Seeing that the people at the same time as me have all reached the soul unification realm, there's no reason for me to fall behind. The heavenly concubine said. Knight Sorrow didn't say anything. He knew that the heavenly concubine was a strong person. In a day in the real world, Wu Lingfei had cultivated for close to 2 months in a time acceleration of 50 times. After she had completely stabilized her realm, she came out. Why is the most important section? Hashtag. After your realm stabilizes, your cultivation won't be a problem. Just need to get used to it and settle down a bit. Then, you can attempt the 9 Emperor Tribulation. The heavenly concubine said to Wu Lingfei. Thank you for guarding me. Wu Lingfei nodded at the heavenly concubine. After resting for a while, the 3 of them continued their journey. Knight Sorrow's battle prowess was even more terrifying now that his physical strength had leveled up. He didn't even need to use Jin Qi to defeat opponents of the same level as him. He could just rely on his physical strength to defeat them. Among the 100 races of the celestial realm, there are quite a few divine beast clans with exceptional talents. Dragons, Qilins, white tigers, black tortoises, ice phoenixes, and so on. However, none of them can compare to Knight Sorrow in terms of physical cultivation. Wu Lingfei sighed as she watched Knight Sorrow kill a demon beast. There's no point in being envious. I believe that he has put in a lot of effort on this path. It must not have been easy. The heavenly concubine said. Although she didn't know the process, she could guess. No matter what method one used to cultivate the body, strengthening the flesh and bones was a painful process. After the battle, Knight Sorrow collected the loot and returned to the 2 girls. What are you talking about? He didn't even collect the spoils of war. I'm talking about you. You're clearly a human, but your body is as strong as a demon beast. The heavenly concubine said. Yi Shang looked himself up and down. Am I all right? I don't see anything wrong. The heavenly concubine smiled. There's no problem on the outside, but there's something wrong with your bones. Shaking his head, Knight Sorrow smiled and didn't explain. They were just casually chatting. If he took it seriously, there would be no point in continuing the conversation. As they advanced, Knight Sorrow took on all the battles. The primordial annihilation / had been perfectly integrated. Knight Sorrow even had a vague feeling about the breakthrough of the limitless attribute. This was the benefit of breaking through the bottleneck of an absolute arts cultivation. It was actually similar to using strength to prove one's Tao. After Tran Hung returned to the heavenly desolate city, he was worried about the Scarlet Knight realm. After thinking about it, he felt that the Scarlet Knight realm was lacking in resources. Yu Qing might not have a treasure that could prevent divination. If he didn't have a treasure that could prevent divination, then the clairvoyant master could divine it. After greeting King Yowu and the Grand Elder, Tran Hung brought the clairvoyant master into the Scarlet Knight realm. The clairvoyant master arrived at the battlefield and began to divine. As expected, he divined Yu Qing's whereabouts. Yu Qing had already begun the path of possession. He was at the divine soul uniting realm of the tribulation of the 9 emperors. There was no possibility of reincarnation. He could only possess or reconstruct his body. He didn't have the resources to reconstruct his body, so possession was the only way. Tran Hung chased after him. He used the 9 dragons heaven and earth cauldron to envelop Yuqing's possessed body. Then, he killed Yuqing completely. Without Yuqing in the Scarlet Night realm, the 100 races of the celestial realm were training and even surviving here. Tran Hung was not worried. Now, he was worried about whether Night Sorrow's group would be successful. This was related to the future fate of the celestial realm. After entering another Sumra world, the heavenly concubine's expression changed as soon as she found her footing. What is that? Tarsal venomous ants. There is no way to defend against them. They are born to eat flesh and blood to survive. Our protective precept domains can be easily broken. Evil things. Let me try. Night Sorrow took a step forward. He remembered that when his body was cultivated to the essence Chi Wolf smoke level, ordinary venomous insects and snakes could not get close to him. Now, his body was many times stronger than before. He could definitely give it a try. Night Sorrow activated his own blood. Then, with heat and a suppressive presence, the blood air spread out in all directions. The heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei looked at each other. They did not expect Night Sorrow's blood air to be so strong. Just the blood air alone was enough to create a substantial impact. Night Sorrow stood where he was like a little red sun. He blocked the tarsal venomous ants that had already surrounded the 3 of them. Fortunately, it is effective. We do not need to run. Night Sorrow activated his blood. He led Wu Lingfei and the heavenly concubine forward. It is no wonder your children are so talented. Your body has been cultivated to this level. Your genes and bloodline are better than some of the more talented races, the heavenly concubine said. You cannot use talent to erase their achievements. To be honest, those children have worked very hard. Night Sorrow smiled. His children's achievements and hard work were his pride. He also knew that the heavenly concubine was telling the truth. When he had children, he had already achieved something. Of course, his achievements were high, and his bloodline power was strong. Yi Xiaoluo, Yi Lingxi, and Yi Xiaokei, who were born later, were more talented than Yi Qingyan and Yi Yujun. Night Sorrow moved forward, and the tarsal venomous ants fell back. Night Sorrow's body was releasing blood power. It suppressed them, and they could not go forward. Restraint. Night Sorrow's blood air was full of yang power. It was the bane of the tarsal venomous ants. Night Sorrow, your body is a treasure. Your bones are holy bones, and your blood is holy blood. If you use them to make pills, they will be the best ingredients, the heavenly concubine said. Chapter 22:31. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, the heavenly concubine and Wu Ling concubine both laughed. If he wasn't strong enough, then having a treasure would be a crime. However, Night Sorrow now had the ability to protect himself. In addition, Night Sorrow's connections and status had reached a certain level in the celestial realm. It could be said that no one had any ideas about Night Sorrow. As for the opponent, it didn't matter if Night Sorrow had a treasure or not. They were determined to kill him. For example, Mo Zhantian and Mo Yutian wanted to cut Night Sorrow into pieces because Night Sorrow had ruined too many of their plans. In addition, Night Sorrow was also a flag of the celestial realm. Night Sorrow's fall was the fall of the celestial realm's human emperor. It was a huge blow to the morale of the celestial realm's 100 races. Seeing that Night Sorrow didn't say anything, the heavenly concubine said, "It's true that no one wants to touch you. However, what you just said was not a joke. If you break a finger and throw it out, then the world will be turned upside down. Countless cultivators will fight until their heads bleed. Injuries in battle are unavoidable, but I won't actively harm myself. My body, hair, and skin are from my parents. Cherishing myself is a form of respect for my parents and myself," Night Sorrow said. In the Demon Wing clan, the members of the clan develop themselves after reaching adulthood. They almost never stay with their parents. This is the difference from the celestial realm. Filial piety is also one of the celestial realm's civilizations, the heavenly concubine said with some emotion. Weren't you the Demon Wing clan's enlightenment saint ancestor? You know about the celestial realm's filial piety civilization. Didn't you teach the Demon Wing clan? Night Sorrow asked, puzzled. I know about the celestial realm civilization. I also know that it is a very important civilization. However, it conflicts with the Demon Wing clan's customs. In the past, the Demon Wing clan members encouraged their descendants to become independent early. They didn't live with their parents, the heavenly concubine explained. The heavenly concubine explained. She was the holy ancestor of the Demon Wing clan, but she could not overturn the Demon Wing clan's own civilization. After hearing heavenly concubine's explanation, Night Sorrow understood the reasoning behind it. Night Sorrow urged his blood energy and essence energy to suppress the tarsal venomous ants. Without a single battle, they passed through the overlapping Sumera space. In that overlapping space, the tarsal poisonous ants were the overlords. With them around, no other life could survive. Night Sorrow sat beside the tea table that the heavenly concubine had brought out, waiting to drink some tea. Yes, those things are small in size and quite strong themselves. It is very difficult for Tao domains and domains to suppress them. If one is surrounded by them, the outcome will be tragic. Not even bones will be left. Heavenly Concubine described the horror of the tarsal venomous ants. Night Sorrow nodded. He was very impressed with the Heavenly Concubine's experience. That was her accumulation and foundation. It was very difficult for other cultivators to compare. After drinking a pot of tea and chatting for a while, Night Sorrow's group continued on their way. As they approached the World Tree, the three of them became more and more excited. Advancing forward was unavoidable. Night Sorrow had mastered the primordial annihilation slash. He had a new goal, which was to evolve the reincarnation true dragon art to the same level as the primordial annihilation slash. It would evolve into a true forbidden technique. With the experience of cultivating the primordial annihilation slash, Night Sorrow's cultivation of the reincarnation true dragon art was very smooth. He wanted to cultivate the two forbidden attributes into absolute techniques. This way, even if his cultivation level didn't increase, his combat strength would increase significantly. Tran Hung and King Yowu often looked for Lin Yun. Through Lin Yun's clones, they communicated with Wu Lingfei's clones to understand the situation of Night Sorrow's group. They had high hopes for Night Sorrow's group. Cultivating absolute techniques was of great help to Night Sorrow's cultivation level. As he advanced in battle, his cultivation level was getting closer and closer to the tribulation of the Five Kings. The main reason was that he could use his strength to prove his Tao. He could use his energy to push forward his cultivation level. Night Sorrow wanted his original body to cultivate his cultivation level and his clone to deal with the battle. However, in reality, it was impossible. If the clone wasn't enveloped by the original body's soul power, it couldn't exist in the world of trees. Once, Night Sorrow's original body entered the Clear Sky Pagoda to heal, and the clone was almost expelled. Why? Because the clone didn't have spirituality. Why was only the original body able to increase his cultivation level? Why was only the original body able to have children? It was because of spirituality. The original body's soul was the main soul. It had spirituality, but the clone didn't have any. The Heavenly Concubine and Wu Lingfei could exist in the world of trees because of their spirituality and their cultivation level. Night Sorrow relied on his merit Tao body to survive in the world of trees. However, spirituality was also a very important factor. Regardless of how good the spirituality was, it couldn't be zero. If there was no spirituality at all, then the merit Tao body would be useless. The world tree wouldn't allow any lifeforms without spirituality to get close. The battle clone and the original body advanced in the world of trees. Night Sorrow's 9 Realms clone was in the Heaven Sealing Hall, deducing the fusion cultivation of the reincarnation true dragon spell. The Medicine Valley of the 9 Realms world was undergoing a transformation. Gong Xian dealt with the Medicine Valley's affairs heavily. The families and affiliates of the Medicine Valley with bad records were all eliminated. No one was spared. Dai Tongtong's family, Lin Jingyi's family, and Tianyue Peak Master Jean Can's family were the most severely punished. Hundreds of people from the three families were directly executed. In addition, the Medicine Valley's law enforcement team also appeared. The disciples of the Medicine Valley and the members of the affiliated forces of the Medicine Valley were all executed directly. 2x. Legit 2x, Gong Xian's ruthlessness caused some unrest, but most people in the Medicine Valley supported him. The three seniors, Xiang Tianding, Yu Yangyu, and Hua Yunpeng, supported him. Everyone in the Taishan Peak supported him. Under such circumstances, Gong Xian had the support of the seniors and the strength, so there was nothing he couldn't do. Valley Master, some of the families under Crepe Myrtle have been attacked this time. Can Junior Tang understand? Don't cause a rift between the two of you. Chu Lingxiao chatted with Gong Xian in the Elixir Cauldron Hall. The two of them used to have some estrangement because of Aoi, but that was a small matter. For thousands of years, the two of them had built a deep friendship. Chu Lingxiao supported and cooperated with Gong Xian's big moves in the Medicine Valley. I hope she can understand that we haven't been in contact all these years mainly because Crepe Myrtle went too far, Gong Xian said. He and Crepe Myrtle's Tang Qianqian had feelings for each other, but they hadn't developed much in the past few hundred years. Crepe Myrtle went too far because of those disappointing disciples of Crepe Myrtle. They are all her junior sisters, so it's difficult for her to deal with them. Yi Xiling entered the Elixir Cauldron Hall. Greetings, Uncle Master. Gong Xian and Chu Lingxiao both stood up and bowed. Valley Master, Deputy Valley Master, I'm here to ask for forgiveness. In retrospect, as an elder, I didn't do anything for the Medicine Valley. Instead, I made a mess of things, Yi Xiling said to Gong Xian and Chu Lingxiao. Gong Xian didn't say anything. Saying that Yi Xiling didn't do anything wrong? That would be against his conscience. However, if he were to blame her, Yi Xiling was his uncle master. Chu Lingxiao also had the same mentality. Respect was respect, but right or wrong was right or wrong. Chapter 2232. Thank you, Uncle Master. Gong Xian nodded. Regardless of whether Yi Xiling was right or wrong, he was still her Uncle Master. I will go to Danding Cliff and reflect on my mistakes for 300 years to wake myself up, Yi Xiling said and left. Chu Lingxiao sighed. Actually, there are some things that we can't do anything about. Everyone has feelings and there are times when they can't let go of their pride. Lin Jingyi was her favorite disciple and the one who went the most overboard. Now that the Crepe Myrtle matter has been resolved, Valley Master can talk to junior sister Tang. There are some issues that everyone can weigh in their hearts and distinguish between right and wrong. Thank you. I'll treat you to a drink some other day. Gong Xian cupped his hands at Chu Lingxiao. After Gong Xian left, Chu Lingxiao was still thinking. He mentioned this today because he felt that he shouldn't let some external factors affect his personal feelings. Back then, when he had a conflict with Aoi, his sister's relationship with Mo Chen had been delayed. He didn't want such a thing to happen to Gong Xian and Tang Qianqian. In the main hall of Crepe Myrtle, Tang Qianqian sat quietly in the main seat. She didn't look too good. She was aware of the big movements of the Medicine Valley. The law enforcement team had killed some members of Crepe Myrtle's subordinate families who had committed serious crimes and sent some facts and evidence to her. After seeing them, she was furious. The Lin family, they've really caused a lot of trouble. Tang Qianqian smiled bitterly. She loved Gong Xian very much. Gong Xian used to come to Crepe Myrtle often. Sometimes, he would accompany her for an entire day. She understood Gong Xian's feelings. But gradually, Gong Xian stopped coming to Crepe Myrtle. At first, Tang Qianqian didn't understand, but she gradually understood that Gong Xian had some opinions about Crepe Myrtle. As the Valley Master, he didn't want to have too much to do with Crepe Myrtle. Although she was angry and annoyed, Tang Qianqian did not look for Gong Xian and the matter calmed down. Today, when she saw the information in her hands, she understood that as the peak leader, she did not manage the crepe myrtle well and made things difficult for Gong Xian. While Tang Qianqian was deep in thought, Gong Xian arrived. "Valley Lord, you're here. Please take a seat. Crepe myrtle's subordinate families have troubled you. Actually, if you had sent these over, crepe myrtle would have cleaned them up." Tang Qianqian invited Gong Xian to take a seat. "Qianqian, that's not why I'm here. Today, I met Marshal Uncle Yi and understood some things. In the past, I felt that crepe myrtle's development was not good and you were somewhat responsible. At that time, I only saw the shortcomings of others and did not see myself. As the Valley Master of crepe myrtle, you did not do your part and neglected your duties. But as the Valley Master, am I not the same? I'm here to apologize," Gong Xian said. Tang Qianqian looked at Gong Xian in surprise. She never thought that Gong Xian, who had a strong scholarly air and a strong personality, would say such things to her. Besides, Qianqian was the name they used in private. "I'm sorry." Gong Xian nodded seriously at Tang Qianqian. "I thought you wouldn't come to crepe myrtle again." Tang Qianqian shook her head. Her eyes were filled with tears. She felt wronged. "Of course not. If you don't mind, I'll come here often in the future. After I came back from the city in the sky last time, I decided to change my attitude. I can't mix my personal affairs with my sex affairs. Of course, it depends on what you think." Gong Xian made his intentions clear. Tang Qianqian stood up and poured Gong Xian a cup of tea. "You know what I think. I haven't changed all these years. Thank you for always being like this. It was my fault for not taking responsibility in the past. In the future, if there's anything difficult to handle in Crepe Myrtle Peak, just tell me and Ling Xiao, or hand it over to the Council of Elders. When you have time, the two of us can go out and relax, and visit other places," Gong Xian said. "I'm available anytime. When you have time, we can go to Castle in the Sky. I need to explain to Elder Knight. He's probably very disappointed in me." Tang Qianqian nodded. She knew why Gong Xian came. He was willing to face some things and also wanted to see if she had changed emotionally over the years. From her point of view, if she wanted to be with Gong Xian, then she had to consider the opinions of Gong Xian's junior brother and junior sister. "I have time now." Gong Xian smiled and nodded. He was very happy that Tang Qianqian was the same from the beginning. When they saw Gong Xian and Tang Qianqian appear together in Castle in the Sky, Aoi and Yang Lei were very happy. They naturally understood the situation. "Senior brother, senior sister Tang, Knight Sorrow is not here. I'll go and inform him. He'll probably be very happy," Yang Lei said with a smile. She and Aoi were happy for Gong Xian. Gong Xian was their senior brother. He was like a father to them and had given them a lot of care in the past. #Yu Gong Xian didn't stand on ceremony and nodded with a smile. There were some things he wanted to let Knight Sorrow know and also wanted to get Knight Sorrow's blessings. Yang Lei arrived at 9 Regions City and went to the Heaven Ceiling Great Hall to call for Knight Sorrow. "What's the matter?" Knight Sorrow stopped his closed-door cultivation and directly appeared. He was a little worried because his family would never interrupt his cultivation for no reason. "Don't worry, it's a good thing. Senior brother came to Castle in the Sky and brought a woman with him," Yang Lei said with a smile. "Ah, this is a good thing. Let's go back." Knight Sorrow's eyes lit up. Gong Xian was their senior brother and everyone was very concerned about his personal feelings. After returning to Castle in the Sky, Knight Sorrow was stunned for a moment when he found that the woman with Gong Xian was Tang Qianqian. Tang Qianqian was the same as Gong Xian. They were both senior disciples of their respective peaks and had always been in contact with each other. It was normal for them to develop a relationship. Knight Sorrow entered the mansion full of joy. "Senior brother, senior sister Tang is here. 9th senior sister, prepare a feast. You're back. Your senior sister Tang wants to come to Castle in the Sky. I also miss you." Gong Xian nodded with a smile. Greetings, Elder Yi. Tang Qianqian stood up and cupped her hands towards Night Sorrow. Senior Sister Tang, please don't be like this. We are senior sister and junior brother here. I remember Senior Sister Tang called me 13 back then. Night Sorrow helped Tang Qianqian sit down. 13. I really don't have the face to see you because of some things, but your senior brother said that sex are sex and individuals are individuals. We can't mix them together. That's why I came to see you, Tang Qianqian said. Yes, they can't be lumped together. Actually, if you put yourself in her shoes, Senior Sister Tang is a peak master, but she's also a senior sister. I can understand the difficulties involved, so let's not talk about these things, said Yishang. After letting go of the Medicine Valley, everyone chatted casually. Night Sorrow was really happy. Night Sorrow, Uncle Master Yi went to Danding Cliff to reflect on his mistakes for 300 years. What do you think about this? Gong Xian looked at Night Sorrow and asked. It's good to calm down first. It's good for one's development and improvement, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a while. Chapter 2233. I will. Eldest senior brother, Senior Sister Tang, please stay in Sky City for a few more days. It's been a long time since I drank and chatted with eldest senior brother. I really miss you guys, said Night Sorrow. All right. Others may be polite to you, but I won't, said Gong Xian with a smile. Gong Xian said with a smile. He knew that Yi Shang was still the same as before. No matter how much his cultivation and status had improved, he still treated his fellow disciples the same way. In the world of trees, the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei were very puzzled because Night Sorrow was in high spirits. He even had a smile on his face. When Wu Lingfei asked, Yi Shang explained the situation to her. This is a good thing. Your eldest senior brother is the Valley Master of Medicine Valley. His personal matters are also important to the Eastern Profound region. When the time comes, Aunt Fei will have to attend his wedding, said Wu Lingfei with a smile. When the time comes, everyone will go. When the Medicine Valley returns to its original path, I'll feel relieved. I really don't want to see the Medicine Valley decline, said Night Sorrow. In fact, it wasn't just Night Sorrow who was happy. Yang Lei, Aoi, and the other fellow disciples were also very happy. In their hearts, Gong Xian was their most respected elder brother. In addition, everyone knew Tang Qianqian. She was a very gentle woman, very compatible with Gong Xian's calm personality. In the past, Crepe Myrtle didn't develop well because she valued her relationship with her fellow disciples too much. We will. Night Sorrow, let's talk about the matter at hand first. The Sumera world we're currently in has increased in size. This is a sign that it's close to the world tree. This kind of world will produce more cultivators. Of course, there will also be more holy protectors of the world tree. The situation will be very complicated, said the heavenly concubine. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that the situation would become more and more complicated. The other three had also gained something. The world near the world tree was rich in spirit qi. There were already spirit stones and other high-grade materials. They were all rare treasures. Resources were secondary. The biggest gain for the three of them was their improvement, and it was a qualitative improvement. In the beginning, Night Sorrow was the only one fighting. Now that they were close to the world tree, the repulsive force had decreased. The heavenly concubine and Wu Ling concubine could also fight. However, the heavenly concubine's cultivation was below the tribulation of the 7 emperors. She felt that if she surpassed this limit, she might be expelled. This was also what Night Sorrow wanted. If they couldn't get close to the world tree, the heavenly concubine would be expelled. That would be a wasted trip. During the battle, Night Sorrow was always at the front. He was not afraid of the repulsive force because his power of virtue could resist it. After another battle, Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow and said, Night Sorrow, this is a training ground for you. Your body's energy is still increasing. Night Sorrow nodded. In the past, my body's energy was limited by my soul's cultivation and couldn't increase. Ever since my body's cultivation broke through that line, it broke through the shackles and has been increasing. The progress is not bad. Looking at the smile on your face, I feel like you're showing off. Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow with disdain. I see blessings in your eyes. Thank you. Night Sorrow said with a smile. He knew that Heavenly Concubine was joking and wanted him to feel better. It's really easy to communicate with you because you understand. There's no need to worry about being misunderstood. Heavenly Concubine nodded. After entering another world, Night Sorrow and the other two looked at each other. They were shocked because the spirit energy in this spatial world had reached the level of mist. The mist flowed above the spatial world. It was full of spirit energy. This spatial world isn't big. There must be a reason why the spirit energy is so strong. Let's be careful and explore this space. We can't miss the opportunity. Heavenly Concubine said. Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei nodded. It was easy for high-level cultivators to appear in such a spatial world. It was also easy for great opportunities to appear. Tran Hung said that the world tree wasn't an adult, but it had existed for countless years. Because the world tree's growth cycle was slow, it could even be said to be thousands of cycles. It would only mature during the end of the celestial realm. According to this theory, the spatial world around the world tree had existed for a long time. With such rich spirit energy, it was normal for high-level cultivators to exist. The three of them advanced for half a day and arrived at the core of this spatial world. It was a grassland filled with spirit energy. Spirit-nurturing grass. It's a top alchemy material. It's a treasure that can nourish the soul. It's not used to replenish soul power but to strengthen the soul foundation. There are so many of them here. We're rich. Heavenly Concubine was very excited when she saw the misty grassland. Although I don't recognize this spirit grass, I can feel that the energy it contains is very strong. Night Sorrow said. Retreat. At this moment, the Heavenly Concubine shouted and pulled Night Sorrow and Concubine Wu away. HU. Original 7C first release. As soon as the three of them left, the place they were standing was blown to pieces. A man appeared. The man's energy was surging. He was a tribulation of 7 emperors. The man had been underground, so Night Sorrow and the other two didn't notice him. Heavenly Concubine's soul power was very strong. She felt the energy fluctuation and didn't get ambushed. Seeing Night Sorrow and the other two retreat, the man didn't care about anything else. He directly attacked Night Sorrow and the other two. Why aren't the creatures here afraid of death? Heavenly Concubine was a little depressed. She could easily kill a tribulation of 7 emperors outside, but she couldn't do it here because she couldn't use her full strength. Seeing the man charge over, Night Sorrow's body flashed and blocked in front of Heavenly Concubine. He knew that Heavenly Concubine couldn't take the violent attack head-on. If the energy impact was too strong, she would be expelled. Night Sorrow's energy and true chi cultivation was enough to fight a tribulation of 7 emperors. He was at a disadvantage, but because of his tyrannical body, he wasn't injured. Night Sorrow fought head-on with the opponent. Heavenly Concubine protected Wu Lingfei behind her while observing the opponent. She found that the middle-aged man had a row of bone spikes on his back and his eyes were filled with flames. Night Sorrow, he's a demon beast flame lizard. Be careful of his flame attack, it can burn your soul. Heavenly Concubine saw through the middle-aged man and shouted to Night Sorrow. So what if I know? You guys are destined to be unlucky here. If you dare to use your full strength, you will be expelled. The two of them won't even have the chance to be expelled. After the flame lizard roared, flames shot out from its eyes. It wrapped around Night Sorrow with its black core flame. Shameless boasting. Even if you want to boast, you have to see strength. Night Sorrow's killing intent rose. Not only did this flame lizard sneak attack him, but it also wanted to kill him and Wu Lingfei. he naturally wouldn't let it live. As for the flame lizard situation, it was possible that he couldn't win. When Heavenly Concubine was being expelled, because of her high cultivation, the flame lizard couldn't control or harm her. However, Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei were being expelled. He could use energy to pull and attack. After the killing intent rose, Night Sorrow's doppelganger appeared and attacked the flame lizard with his main body. They used a different attribute's secret art. Chapter 22-34. Why did the flame lizard's expression change? That was because he did not have a clone. He had relied on his talent and environment to cultivate to the tribulation of the 7 emperors. However, his combat power was supported by his talent, so he did not have any inheritance. Naturally, his clone did not cultivate. However, the appearance of Night Sorrow's clone was equivalent to doubling his combat power. Night Sorrow's main body and clone used different combat skills of different attributes, causing the flame lizard to fall into a passive state. Due to the different nature of their attacks, his defense was not targeted. After defending against the primordial destruction / Night Sorrow's reincarnation true dragon art broke through his defense. Passive. The flame lizard's cultivation level was higher than Night Sorrow's, but under the powerful attacks of Night Sorrow's main body and clone, he fell into a passive state. What made him suffer the most was that Night Sorrow's strength was too strong. Every attack would push him back, hindering his follow-up attacks. To be able to release combat power that exceeds his own cultivation level, this is a combat genius, the Heavenly Concubine said. The Heavenly Concubine said. In the past years, she had seen too many cultivators, but none of them could fight like Yishang. It should be known that a difference of 1 level in cultivation was a difference of 1 level. Especially for high-level cultivators, the difference of 1 level was huge. However, Night Sorrow had achieved a high-intensity battle with a higher level. Moreover, after his clone joined the battle, he was not at a disadvantage. The flame lizard was furious. Night Sorrow's cultivation level was 3 levels lower than his. He did not understand how Night Sorrow could suppress his combat power. The power suppression made him feel even more uncomfortable. After every collision, his attacks would pause. Merit Primordial Dao Domain, Merit Reincarnation Dao Domain. As the battle raged on, Night Sorrow's main body and his avatar unleashed a domain reinforced by the power of virtue, once again consolidating their advantage. How dare you boast so shamelessly? Seeing that the flame lizard's attacks were suppressed by Night Sorrow's Dao Domain and strength, and could no longer release energy that exceeded the tribulation of the 7 emperors' cultivation level and trigger the repulsive force, the Heavenly Concubine attacked again. Together with Night Sorrow, they began to attack the flame lizard. Ignoring the fact that the flame lizard could expel her from the world of trees, the Heavenly Concubine's fighting strength was displayed. In terms of battle techniques and battle experience, the 10 flame lizards could not compare to Heavenly Concubine. Night Sorrow was suppressing Heavenly Concubine. Heavenly Concubine's sword chi kept cutting the flame lizards' bodies. It started to destroy the insides of the flame lizards. Human Emperor's Seal. In order to completely suppress the flame lizard, Night Sorrow activated the Human Emperor's Seal and increased the suppression on the flame lizard. The flame lizard, which had already been suppressed and heavily injured by the Heavenly Concubine, could no longer hold on. Its speed and attack power had dropped to an extreme, and it could only passively take a beating. After an hour, Yishang and the Heavenly Concubine worked together to destroy the flame lizard. Normally, it wouldn't take this long because the flame lizard's soul was too condensed. After destroying the flame lizard's body, Yishang and the Heavenly Concubine worked together to attack for a while before destroying the flame lizard's soul. Heavenly Concubine pointed at the nurturing spirit grass in the distance and said, "Very powerful. He doesn't have any cultivation inheritance, soul techniques, or clones. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for us to kill him. The reason is that nurturing spirit grass. His soul is extremely tough. Other cultivators can't compare to it. The nurturing spirit grass is definitely a top treasure, and now it's ours. Danger comes with opportunity. This saying is true. Night Sorrow got up and walked towards the nurturing spirit grass. Heavenly Concubine and Wu Lingfei followed behind Night Sorrow. First Hair Wu Lingfei could no longer fight against a high-level Emperor Tribulation cultivator. She had not reached the Emperor Tribulation level, so she was too weak in front of a cultivator like the 7 Emperor Tribulation. A single attack from a high-level Emperor Tribulation cultivator could heavily injure or even kill her. Under such circumstances, Wu Lingfei would feel unnatural and uncomfortable if she was with someone else. However, she wouldn't feel that way when she was with Night Sorrow because she and Night Sorrow were extremely close relatives. Relatives didn't need to care about these things. Caring about it would be unreasonable. Night Sorrow looked at Heavenly Concubine and asked, "My spatial world's condition is not bad. I wonder if I can take the nurturing spirit grass away. If I can, it would be very convenient. We can use it whenever we want." Heavenly Concubine looked at Heavenly Concubine and said, "The survival and growth of spirit herbs depends on the environment. Your Haotian pagoda is not bad. If you make a floor just to store the nurturing spirit grass, it might be possible. However, we need to understand the nurturing spirit grass." Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow and said. She felt that Night Sorrow's idea was good, but she didn't think about it that way. Night Sorrow and the other two looked around the nurturing spirit grass and didn't find anything special. Wu Lingfei said, "The nurturing spirit grass living environment must have world power first. Also, there must be some secret underground. The flame lizard came from underground. He must have been cultivating underground." Night Sorrow nodded. Since they didn't find anything around the nurturing spirit grass, Night Sorrow had some ideas. He had the same idea as Wu Lingfei. When they arrived at where the flame lizard had come from, Night Sorrow led Heavenly Concubine and Wu Ling Concubine in. It was a hole filled with broken rocks. The hole didn't originally exist, but it was created when the flame lizard ambushed the 3 of them. After advancing for less than 200 feet, the 3 of them found a stone cave at the bottom. Inside the stone cave, there was a milky white stone pillar. Night Sorrow turned around and asked Heavenly Concubine, "What is this? It's not like I know everything. I've never seen this thing before, but it's definitely a treasure. Its aura is very similar to the soul-raising grass. It should be the main reason why the soul-raising grass is produced. Put this thing into your spatial treasure. You're the realm lord of the 9 regions world. Put some origin energy into your spatial treasure. Then, the soul-raising grass will have the conditions to grow. At most, you can put in some spirit stones to maintain the density of spirit energy." Night Sorrow studied the milky white stone pillar that emitted a gentle light. He felt very comfortable. It was a comfort that came from the depths of his soul. Night Sorrow said, "Heavenly Concubine, I will use the clear sky pagoda to store the stone pillar. Use your energy to prevent the ground from collapsing. Then, I will go and cultivate the nurturing spirit grass. When we return to the 9-domain world, I will move them to the heaven ceiling Great Hall. Let's not talk about the value of the nurturing spirit grass. At the very least, we can create a top-notch cultivation environment." Heavenly Concubine nodded and said, "Okay, but slow down. The stone pillar is very long. Don't damage it." Yi Shang had Wu Lingfei move to the side. His avatar appeared with his main body. His 4 arms slowly pulled the stone pillar out. When the base of the stone pillar appeared, Yi Shang slowly moved back in the direction he had come from and slowly pulled the stone pillar out. Night Sorrow's movements were very slow. He was afraid of damaging the top and destroying the nurturing spirit grass. Chapter 22:35. It's simply a beast. Its power is too frightening. Fortunately, the cave is fine. I used my energy to compress it, so it won't collapse. We can go to the surface to collect the soul-nurturing grass, said the Heavenly Concubine. Night Sorrow nodded and left the cave with the Heavenly Concubine and Wu Lingfei. The 3 of them looked around the green patch where the soul-nurturing grass was and used their soul powers to investigate the ground. The roots of the soul-nurturing grass aren't deep, I'll use my sword energy to cut the ground and use my soul power to lift it up. You can put it into the clear sky pagoda. This way, the soil structure won't be damaged, said the heavenly concubine after investigating. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew this was the best method. After choosing a location, the heavenly concubine pulled out her sword and stabbed it into the ground. Sword energy burst out and cut the ground where the soul-nurturing grass was. Then, her soul power lifted it up. At this time, Night Sorrow's soul power burst out and moved the ground into the clear sky pagoda. It was placed on the same floor as the stone pillar. Then, he placed some spirit stones and the 9-region origin bead on this floor. The 9 regions origin bead was Night Sorrow's soul-protecting treasure. Even if it was placed inside the clear heaven pagoda, it wouldn't affect him. When he needed it, he just needed to use his soul force to guide it back to his divine sea. After everything was done, Night Sorrow also moved the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei to this floor of the clear sky pagoda. Very good. The two of you are very careful. The area where the soul-nurturing grass grows hasn't changed. The stone pillar is still there and the origin energy is still there, said Wu Lingfei after looking around. Let them grow naturally. When needed to refine pills, just collect them. Night Sorrow nodded. With a forest in hand, there's no need to worry about firewood. The heavenly concubine smiled. She knew this was a great harvest. It belongs to all of us. It's just temporarily with me. If you too need it, come and get it from me, said Night Sorrow. The heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei nodded. The soul-nurturing grass was beneficial to the soul. They really needed it, or rather, all cultivators needed it. After looking around and feeling that there were no problems, Night Sorrow and the other two went to the living area of the clear sky pagoda. Night Sorrow brewed a pot of tea. This mission was very difficult, but the harvest was also great. Everything was worth it. NUZRX, we are getting closer and closer to the world tree. There are more opportunities, but at the same time, there are more dangers. We have met a few tribulation of the 7 emperors. If there are more powerful opponents, they will be a threat to us. Night Sorrow, if I'm forced to fight at full strength and get kicked out, I'll take you guys out with me. Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow and said. She was greeting Night Sorrow. She knew that Night Sorrow was a stubborn person who wouldn't back down in the face of danger. However, she didn't want to see such a scene. Heavenly Concubine, help me take care of my Aunt Fei. Don't worry about me. Night Sorrow said. Night Sorrow, I know you have dreams and ambitions, but you have to know that you can only do things if you are alive. You have to avoid danger if you can. Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow and shook her head. I've thought about it. If it doesn't work out, I'll just run. Given the strength and speed of my body, if I avoid the battle, given Emo Gentian's cultivation base, he won't be able to kill me quickly. I'll have time to run. I remember the way here. Night Sorrow smiled. Heavenly Concubine sighed. She knew that Night Sorrow would have such thoughts. Wu Lingfei opened her mouth to say something, but she didn't say anything. She was worried about Night Sorrow like Heavenly Concubine, but she also understood Night Sorrow's character. After resting for a while, the three continued forward. Heavenly Concubine raised her soul power to the maximum. This way, she could detect danger in advance. A year passed, and Night Sorrow's group was getting closer to the world tree's true body. Looking up, Night Sorrow saw 3 spatial wavy lines in the hazy space. This meant that after 3 more spatial worlds, they would arrive at the world where the world tree's true body was. That would be the most crucial moment of this operation. Night Sorrow, how many worlds have we passed? Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow and asked. I don't remember clearly. If not 1,000, it should be at least 800. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said. I remember it's 996. After these 3 wavy lines, there will be 999 spatial worlds. Wu Lingfei was a meticulous person. She remembered some things very clearly. The Thousand Worlds Defensive Body. Including the world where the world tree is, there are exactly 1,000 worlds. This defensive technique of hers is called the Thousand Worlds Defensive Body. It is recorded in the Demon Wing clan. An ancestor of the Demon Wing clan once experienced this. He cultivated the 100 Worlds True Body. He was the leader of the Demon Wing clan when they attacked the celestial realm. He was invincible at that time. After he died, the celestial realm's 100 races were revived. Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow and said, "That means he had a heaven-defying achievement in the way of space. It doesn't matter if he was an outsider or not, this is admirable," Night Sorrow said. Yes, he didn't have a forbidden element. He had the void and space elements. He was also the world master of a world. He could control the power of origin, so he had a great achievement in this area. The Demon Wing clan had sealed that book for a long time, but no one had been able to cultivate it, Heavenly Concubine explained to Night Sorrow. Elements don't match. Without talent in this area, it will be very difficult to achieve anything, Wu Lingfei said. It's like this. We still have 3 more worlds to go through. We have to be careful. The first few worlds weren't easy for us. Night Sorrow looked at the 3 wavy lines in front of him. In fact, this was the case. In this 1 year, Yi Shang and the others had experienced too many things. Night Sorrow had been severely injured several times. The most serious injury was when his avatar's left arm was cut off and his main body's chest was pierced through. Just imagine how strong his opponent was if he suffered such injuries despite his strong body. Night Sorrow, now I can use the power of the 8 Emperor Tribulation. You don't have to fight too hard. Heavenly Concubine looked at Night Sorrow and said. She had never admired anyone, but she was completely impressed by Night Sorrow's strength and tenacity. I will. Remember, if there is a problem, take Aunt Fei and retreat first, Night Sorrow said to Heavenly Concubine again. Heavenly Concubine nodded. She understood Night Sorrow's determination. At this time in Tianhuang City, Wu Lingfei, Tran Heng, and King Yowu were talking about the current situation. We didn't do much, so Night Sorrow had to bear too much. King Yowu sighed. He felt a little guilty because he didn't take good care of Night Sorrow. He was his junior brother's only disciple. Chapter 2236. Everyone knows Night Sorrow's temper. He's not someone who gives up easily, said Wu Lingfei. Tran Heng shook his head helplessly. How could he not know Night Sorrow's character? It was difficult when he was exiled, and it was difficult when he intercepted Imo Tianji, but Night Sorrow had persevered. He had never given up. Faith. He has an incomparably firm faith in his heart, said the Grand Elder. I will tell him about the 3 seniors' concern, said Wu Lingfei. Night Sorrow brought the Heavenly Concubine and Wu Lingfei into Sumer world. There was no difference between space and world in the concept of ordinary cultivators, but in reality, there was a big difference. Only something that was strong, had a certain area, and had a certain degree of maturity could be called a world. If the laws were not perfect and had not been created for a long time, it could only be called a space. Night Sorrow's group had entered the spatial wavy lines in the beginning. The spatial world they entered was a layer of space. Now, the last 3 lines were world lines, and they contained worlds. After advancing for a while, life forms appeared. It was not a single demon beast, but a complex group of many races. This was also a symbol of a world. The weak cultivators did not dare to approach Yi Shang's group. Since there was no one blocking their path, Yi Shang's group continued forward. If there was anyone blocking their path, then sorry, Yi Shang's group would directly kill them. If we take the world tree back, her living space will need a lot of space, said Wu Lingfei as they flew. We've advanced for a long time, but in reality, we've always been in Sumer world. The world tree's area is only 10,000 miles wide. We can only see some energy shadows outside. The 1,000 realms whirling defense she set up is also 10,000 miles wide. The celestial realm's large cities and the 9-domain world's large cities are far beyond this area. Let's talk about the 9-domain city. Night Sorrow, how big is the 9-domain city now? Asked the heavenly concubine. In the past, it wasn't that big. However, as the 9 realms world's level continued to rise, and the cultivators of the 9 realms world used 9 realm city as the core of their development, 9 realm city's surface area increased by a great deal. The land now extends deep into the realm sea. It's at least 1,000,000 kilometers wide, Yi Shang said after a moment of thought. Wu Lingfei nodded and said, that's not a problem. Let's study how to approach it first. As he advanced, Yi Shang could feel his own improvement. It was the improvement of his soul power. He moved the soul-raising grass into the clear sky pagoda and put it in the 9-domain world's origin bead and spirit stones. The soul-raising grass environment didn't weaken, it was growing stronger. It emitted a gentle energy. The soul was a fundamental nourished, was a nourished, was nourished, was a nourished, was nourished, was a nourished, was a fundamental nourished. Night Sorrow, S soul. Was a nourished nourishment at the fundamental level, the nourishment, was soul's nourished is. This situation gave Yi Shang some hope. His body had already been cultivated very well. In the future, he would just have to let nature take its course. In the heavenly concubine's words, when his cultivation reached the 6 Emperor Tribulation and 7 Emperor Tribulation, he would be unparalleled in the world. When he cultivated to the 9 Emperor Tribulation, his body would have an advantage over any other cultivator since ancient times. Another factor related to whether or not one could successfully pass the God-slaying tribulation was the strength of the soul. Night Sorrow's soul power was more than 1/3 of a cultivator at the same level in terms of quantity. It was perfect and flawless. If it was strengthened by the soul-raising grass, his chances would be even greater. The heavenly concubine had measured the flame lizard's soul power. It was comparable to the 9 Emperor Tribulation. It might even be better. Of course, it was only the power of the soul power. The size of the spiritual nascent bead was still at the 7 Emperor Tribulation level. If it was the 9 Emperor Tribulation's cultivation and the power of the soul power, it would be incredible. Now that he had the soul-raising grass, Night Sorrow had the same conditions as the flame lizard to cultivate his soul power. His future was very good. Because the 3 of them had obtained the soul-raising grass together, Night Sorrow explained the effects of the soul-raising grass to the heavenly concubine and Wu Lingfei. We're just following you. The main battles and problems were all solved by you. If there are any benefits, we'll just stick to you. When the battle isn't urgent, we'll just go into the space where the soul-raising grass is to cultivate. The heavenly concubine expressed her attitude first. Yes, you can make the decision. Wu Lingfei didn't care about it either. I've always heard that in the group of cultivators, there were fights between family members. I don't think that's the case, Night Sorrow said. You're wrong. Not everyone is open-minded. When they encounter some heaven-defying treasures, they want to take it all for themselves or split it unequally. Then there will be disputes. Take this soul-raising grass for example. Any one of it will cause cultivators to fight over it. The heavenly concubine shook her head. She didn't quite agree with Night Sorrow's view. Night Sorrow had a kind heart and looked at everything in a good direction. However, in reality, there were many narrow-minded and dark cultivators everywhere. All right. You win, but don't think of everyone as bad. Night Sorrow said with a smile. You're right. At least the people around you are open-minded. Perhaps this is the proof of the saying, one is marked by the company one keeps. The heavenly concubine nodded. She had seen many people around Night Sorrow and had some understanding of them. People with bad character and temperament won't be able to enter this circle. Even if they were in this circle before, their character will slowly fade away. Wu Lingfei said. Hearing Wu Lingfei's words, Night Sorrow thought of some people. The first one was Lin Jingyi. He used to think that Lin Jingyi was a good person, but as time passed, some of her weaknesses appeared. This was something he couldn't accept, so he wouldn't have any interactions with her. As they advanced, Night Sorrow's doppelganger scouted ahead. However, it had to be within the range of the main body's soul power. Otherwise, it would be expelled. Battles occurred from time to time, but they were all settled by Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, your soul power has increased as well? After seeing Night Sorrow use soul destruction / to destroy an evil cultivator's spirit the heavenly concubine looked at Night Sorrow. She naturally noticed the changes in Night Sorrow's soul power. This is the effect of the soul-nurturing grass. The effect is quite good. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Night Sorrow, you've worked hard enough. As you work harder, your path will become smoother and smoother. The heavens reward the diligent, and the heavens don't bully people. The heavenly concubine said. Yes, the harder you work, the luckier you will be. Hard work is an attitude. It's an attitude and awareness that all cultivators should have. Night Sorrow agreed with the heavenly concubine. I hope this trip goes smoothly. Then, as long as we protect the celestial realm and the 9 regions world, the future will be stable. Wu Lingfei said. Chapter 22:37. Is it very powerful? Night Sorrow looked at the heavenly concubine. It's a very simple question. The world tree is the spirit of the heavenly way. It is very mysterious and can use the power of the heavenly way and origin energy. If it attacks us, you know the result. The heavenly concubine looked at Night Sorrow strangely. She felt that Night Sorrow knew very little about common sense. In her eyes, he was an idiot. For example, during this trip, she had explained a lot of things. Night Sorrow didn't know anything. It's not shameful to ask. There are some things that I really don't know, and no one told me, Night Sorrow said with a smile. In this aspect, he admitted that he wasn't good enough. Looking at Night Sorrow and thinking about Night Sorrow's path of growth, the heavenly concubine understood. Night Sorrow had a few masters, but Yu Yangyu and the Qing Emperor weren't at a high enough level. They didn't know much about some things, so they couldn't teach Night Sorrow anything. As for Yan Wushuang, he was naturally very experienced. He wasn't much worse than the heavenly concubine. They both had their own strengths, but he had only met Night Sorrow once. He had only left behind his inheritance. Other than that, he didn't have any other guidance for Night Sorrow. The most important thing was that Night Sorrow was too young. Compared to cultivators of the same level, his experience was very low. However, compared to cultivators of the same age, he couldn't be compared at all. Apart from the members of the god-slaying team from the 9 regions world, cultivators who were 1,000 years old, even if they were geniuses, were at most saint kings or monarchs. Even heavenly monarchs were extremely rare. Yi Shang, on the other hand, was a mid-level imperial tribulation cultivator. They could not be compared. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. We're friends, so there's no need to be so polite. Don't throw your face elsewhere, the heavenly concubine said with a smile after thinking about Night Sorrow's past. Okay, I'll ask you if there's anything I don't understand. You really don't know much. I haven't found anything you don't know yet. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew this was heavenly concubine's kindness. Old woman, this is the accumulation of time. 9 epochs, 900 billion years, do you know what kind of concept that is? The heavenly concubine said. That's not right. In the world of cultivators, we only talk about achievements. Age is just a standard to measure one's achievements. Night Sorrow even married a woman many times older than him. Wu Lingfei said with a smile. That's right. Age isn't important among high-level cultivators. I didn't choose this when I married her, mainly because we were in love. Of course, there are also many other reasons. There are also times when I was forced to do something beyond my ability, Night Sorrow said. The heavenly concubine and willing concubine both laughed. Night Sorrow was a legend in the 9 regions world. The story of him being forced to marry by Datura was also a beautiful story. This was because Night Sorrow's family was very harmonious and loving. This was something everyone knew. Back then, my life goal really wasn't that big. I just wanted to do some things well. Back then, when I joined the Medicine Valley, I wanted to get the protection of the Medicine Valley for Zhuyuan village and let the villagers stay away from the beasts. After I met Chuyu, I wanted to marry and have children in the future and give her a peaceful and happy life. Later on, the world forced me to move forward, giving me a higher goal. Night Sorrow said with a bit of emotion. The heavenly concubine and willing concubine nodded. Willing concubine understood Night Sorrow very well. When they first met on East Snow Mountain, willing concubine knew Night Sorrow's attitude towards life. As they chatted, Night Sorrow and the other two quickly moved forward. This world already has order. I hope it won't be destroyed in the future. When they reached the world barrier, they were about to leave. Night Sorrow turned around and looked at the world behind him. Kindness, he always had kindness in his heart. This is a subsidiary world of the World Tree. It's the World Tree that decides their fate, the heavenly concubine said. Night Sorrow nodded and left this summer world. He brought the two women into the next summer world. After half a month, Night Sorrow and the other two successfully passed through the second summer world. There was only one world line left in front of them. If your cultivation is not enough, your realm is not enough. If you cultivate to the extreme, tearing open a spatial world is just a matter of moments. You should know that someone once cultivated the 100 Worlds defense body. That's proof, the heavenly concubine said. Of course. If you can set up 100 spatial worlds for defense, tearing open a spatial world is too easy. We are now at the last step. After passing through this summer world, we will reach the World Tree's true body. Night Sorrow was looking forward to it. More than a year of hard work would soon see the results. In the hazy sky, the World Tree's crown was expanding. However, it was hard to tell if it was real or fake. It was also unrealistic to fly close because of the spatial line's defense. The spatial line that Night Sorrow and the other two passed through was very long and extended in a circle. This was also the reason why Night Sorrow and the other two couldn't go around it and had to pass through it. Night Sorrow, I am very curious. You clearly know that I know about the 1,000 Worlds defense body. You also have the conditions to cultivate it. Why didn't you ask? Because of your respect for me, you didn't have any thoughts? The heavenly concubine looked at Night Sorrow. Yes. You fought for the 9 regions world. To put it bluntly, whether it was because of the oath or because you are from the 9 regions world, you should do it. However, there are some things that you are free to do. If I ask, it will only make you embarrassed and cause a rift between us. It is not worth it. I also don't want you to feel sorry for anyone. I don't want you to feel sorry for the demon-winged race. This way, no matter when, we can face each other openly and stand proudly in the world. Isn't that good? Night Sorrow looked at the heavenly concubine and said. I understand. Mo Tianji nodded. She was very touched. She understood Night Sorrow's resolve. Therefore, she felt that it was even more rare. Absolute arts are all created. Give me some time and let me raise my cultivation. It is not impossible for me to create my own absolute art. Night Sorrow said with a smile. As they chatted, the three entered the last summer world. After entering the last summer world, Night Sorrow realized that this summer world had truly matured. It had perfect laws and the will of heaven and earth. There was even the manifestation of the heavenly Tao. Of course, it was a little weak. The heavenly concubine realized that the repulsive force against her was very low. She could fight without suppressing her cultivation. Night Sorrow, you have worked hard for more than a year. You have been fighting all the time. This time, you can rest. I will scout ahead. After realizing that she could fight without restriction, the heavenly concubine said. W most unspecified currency new H chapter asterisk section, above %V, the repulsive force against the world tree has not changed. I don't have an advantage over you guys. It seems that my spirituality is not enough. Night Sorrow said. Chapter 22:38. Then she doesn't dislike me. Night Sorrow said with a smile. You can put it that way. Who would dislike the virtuous monarch? She released the energy to repel you out of a defensive instinct. It doesn't mean that she has a subjective opinion of you. The heavenly Tao itself is friendly to virtuous cultivators. The heavenly concubine said. After hearing the heavenly concubine's explanation, Night Sorrow felt a bit more at ease. This way, he might be able to get close to the world tree. He had always been worried that the world tree wouldn't give him the chance to do so. You can't see your own advantages and don't understand how rare it is to become a virtuous monarch. Even if Concubine Ling and I can't, you still have a chance. The world tree is not wary of you. The heavenly concubine shook her head. She knew that Night Sorrow still didn't understand how precious the title of virtuous monarch was. The three of them chatted and laughed as they moved forward. There were cultivators and demonic beasts that blocked their way. The heavenly concubine dealt with them without needing Night Sorrow to do anything. It feels good to be able to fight freely. The past few days were too oppressive. Those poisonous jackals and flame lizards dared to bully me and fight me because I couldn't fight with my full strength. If it was the current situation, they wouldn't dare to even if you beat them to death. The heavenly concubine said. She was in a good mood now. She had been too sullen before and felt like a tiger that had fallen from the sky. Have you dealt with your previous injuries? Night Sorrow asked. After seeing you, I suffered some blows. However, they were all to the body and didn't affect my soul. After my soul returned to my main body, some problems were solved. I'm now in my peak condition. It's just that some cultivation time was delayed. King Wu, Mo Zhantian, and a few others have cultivated to the soul unity realm. I haven't reached that level yet. The heavenly concubine explained to Night Sorrow. After hearing the heavenly concubine's answer, Night Sorrow was relieved. Cultivators weren't afraid of being injured. As long as their Tao foundation wasn't damaged, they would be fine. What was the Tao foundation? It was the foundation of a cultivator. The foundation of a cultivator was the body and soul. Burning one's essence, blood and soul power was an unrecoverable injury. Last time, when Mo Zhantian burned his blood essence and faith power to escape, he had suffered an irrecoverable injury, which was the damage to his Tao foundation. King Wu was also injured, but to a lesser extent. With the heavenly Tao flower that Night Sorrow gave him, he had already recovered and his Tao foundation was unharmed. Heavenly concubine then told Night Sorrow that it was actually a blessing in disguise. Her body was placed in the heaven's ceiling Great Hall by Night Sorrow and was baptized by the 9 regions world's origin power. Her Tao became deeper and her soul mark was erased. It was just that it took some effort to fuse her soul and body. You too, be careful. There is really an expert approaching. Is this the second cultivator of the tribulation of the 9 emperors that is going to die in our hands? The heavenly concubine held her sword in front of her with her left hand. She sensed that an expert was coming. It was a tribulation of the 9 emperors cultivator at the same level as her. After the heavenly concubine's warning, a group of people appeared. The leader was an old man in a blue robe. Foreign cultivators. That means you have a cultivation inheritance. Swear to the heavenly Tao that you will leave behind all your cultivation inheritance and then scram. Otherwise, you will die. Shameless boasting. Seems like you are their leader. The heavenly concubine was so angry that she laughed. What was an inheritance? It was a civilization and an orthodoxy. Protecting the orthodoxy and passing down the orthodoxy was something that every cultivator should do. The other party came and directly asked for an inheritance. It was obvious that they didn't take the 3 of them seriously. I am the heavenly river king. You said that I am shameless boasting. Are you not going to hand it over? If you don't hand it over, you will die. The blue-robed old man's eyes shone with an ominous glint. I don't know how to curse you. Calling you trash is like praising you. Since you are a frog in a well, then you will pay the price for your short-sightedness. The heavenly concubine couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with this heavenly river king and attacked. The heavenly concubine's reserved aura completely erupted. The heavenly river king's expression changed. The heavenly concubine's aura was too strong. It was much stronger than his. If the heavenly concubine had shown this aura and aura from the beginning, the heavenly river king would have considered whether to fight this battle or not. However, he had to fight now. Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei didn't say anything. They directly attacked the heavenly river king's subordinates. At this time, they could only fight. Only by winning could they continue moving forward. Wu Lingfei had gone through 8 emperors' tribulations, but she had the cultivation and realm of 9 emperors' tribulations. In addition to her own talent, she had the combat strength of an emperor's tribulation. She used the extreme frost world to freeze everything around her. Even if the heavenly river king's subordinates could withstand it, they would have to consume a lot of energy. At this time, Night Sorrow's original body and doppelganger were slaughtering violently. It was as if they were harvesting lives. Yi Shang had kindness in his heart, but when it came to battle, it was also his character to kill decisively. It was a one-sided massacre. Among the cultivators that the heavenly river king brought, only one had a higher cultivation than Night Sorrow. He was at the tribulation of 6 emperors. His cultivation was higher than Night Sorrow's, but from the start of the battle, he was suppressed by Night Sorrow's original body. Night Sorrow didn't even need the help of his doppelganger. The heavenly river king knew that he had been blind. He had kicked an iron plate. The heavenly concubine was too strong. He could only passively defend. He hated the heavenly concubine. If she had shown her strength earlier, he might not have gotten close. Translator, Atlas Studios editor, Atlas Studios. This situation wasn't a mistake in the heavenly concubine's strategy. It caused her to not be able to scare off her enemies and opponents. It was enough to show a portion of her strength to scare off her opponents. If she showed her full strength, then when others really came, she would be in a passive position. The heavenly concubine controlled the balance between showing and hiding her strength very well. Like now, even if she didn't scare off the heavenly river king, she could still control the situation. There were more than 20 cultivators that the heavenly river king brought. After a while, other than the one who ran away and the cultivator who was bitterly holding on, the rest were all killed by Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei. Normally, in this situation, the heavenly river king had many subordinates. If they split up and ran, it wouldn't be too difficult to escape. However, Wu Lingfei's extreme cold limited their speed. The one who ran away had a good cultivation and was resistant to the extreme cold because he was of the ice attribute. That was why he ran away. In the end, there were only 2 battlefields left. The heavenly concubine and the heavenly river king, and Night Sorrow and the cultivator from the heavenly river king's tribulation. The cultivator from the heavenly river king's tribulation was bitterly holding on. At this time, he was already heavily injured. Night Sorrow could directly suppress the cultivator from the heavenly river king's tribulation, let alone the cultivator from the heavenly river king's tribulation. There was a difference of 1 level between the heavenly river king's tribulation and the heavenly river king's tribulation, but this difference of 1 level was the watershed in the evolution of the soul level. The difference was huge. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Night Sorrow eliminated his opponent. Then, he charged towards the heavenly river king. When encountering an opponent with the cultivation of the heavenly river king's tribulation, cultivators under the heavenly river king's tribulation would avoid them like the plague. However, Night Sorrow wasn't afraid. It wasn't like he hadn't experienced such a battle before. Control. Chapter 2239. The heavenly river king's situation wasn't good to begin with. He was being suppressed by the heavenly concubine. The addition of Night Sorrow made his situation even worse. After being restricted, his body was constantly attacked. The heavenly river king was constantly hit by the heavenly concubine's attacks. After the sword chi entered his body, it began to destroy his body. The accumulation of advantages and disadvantages began to stack. You two damn adulterous couple. After the Heavenly River King was injured, he cursed without thinking. He hated the heavenly concubine for hiding her cultivation. He also hated Night Sorrow for attacking without fear of death. Night Sorrow's desperate attacks disrupted the Heavenly River King's rhythm. His attack rhythm, defense rhythm, and even movement rhythm were all disrupted. This made the heavenly concubine's attacks even smoother. Why do you say that? You're the one who came to kill us. You're the one who shamelessly said that you wanted the inheritance. Now, you're the one who isn't strong enough. Who can you blame? The heavenly concubine replied. She never thought that she would be called adulteress one day. Night Sorrow didn't reply. He didn't want to argue. In the end, he still needed to use the results of the battle to solve the problem. Using strength to speak was the most powerful. After fighting for an hour, the Heavenly River King was killed by the Heavenly Concubine and Night Sorrow. In the past, the 9 Emperors' tribulation cultivators wouldn't die unless they faced the threat of the God-destroying tribulation. Even if they encountered other 9 Emperors' tribulation cultivators who were stronger, they could still retreat. If the difference was too big, they might have to burn their blood essence and soul power to retreat. In the worst case, their soul would leave their body. But now, they've died. The heavenly concubine looked at Night Sorrow and said, Yi Shang's appearance cut off the path of retreat for the cultivators of the tribulation of 9 emperors who were at a disadvantage. The suppression of the merit domain and the burning of the fire of merit cut off the cultivators of the tribulation of 9 emperors. You can kill him, but you let him run? You're despicable and your mouth is despicable. Damn it. Night Sorrow said. It doesn't matter. We can't lower ourselves to the level of a dead person. Unfortunately, they don't have many treasures. Heavenly Concubine broke into Heavenly River King's storage ring and destroyed his soul imprint. After checking it, she handed it over to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow waved his hand and refused. You keep it. Let's go somewhere else to have a cup of tea and rest. This area should be safe. Night Sorrow did not take the Heavenly River King's storage ring, and the Heavenly Concubine did not force him. She was the same as Night Sorrow, she did not place much importance on formalities. You're right. It should be stable. Sky River King has the tribulation of the 9 emperors. He's probably the overlord of Sumer world. At the very least, he's invincible in this area. After killing him, there shouldn't be any strong opponents for a while. Heavenly Concubine and Night Sorrow had the same opinion. Moving to a different location, he took out a tea table and made a cup of tea for Night Sorrow. Drink up. I'll go get some prey. The Heavenly Concubine flashed and left. Prey appeared in the range of her soul power. Night Sorrow also moved. He found a few withered branches of an ancient tree nearby and started a fire. Eating barbecued meat, Night Sorrow was a bit emotional. In the past, when I went out to train, would often eat barbecued meat and drink wine after a battle. These are all beautiful memories. Actually, happiness and unhappiness in life has nothing to do with cultivation. It's mainly about attitude. Heavenly Concubine poured a cup of wine for Night Sorrow and said, Aunt Concubine, will you live in the Ice Phoenix race or return to the 9 regions world? Night Sorrow looked at Wu Lingfei and asked. Naturally, I'll return to the 9 regions world. East Snow Mountain is my home. Help me look after it and don't let other cultivators occupy it. Wu Lingfei smiled and said. Okay, I'll take care of it. Night Sorrow nodded. The lake near Sky City is not bad. Get me a place near the lake. When there's no war in the 9 regions world, I'll go there to rest. I can also watch over your home. Heavenly Concubine smiled and said. Y nu VM nu are square root max 5k fast, up WB, a Night Sorrow nodded at Heavenly Concubine. He would take care of these matters. Heavenly Concubine didn't need to stay in 9 regions city all the time. Nine Regions City was guarded by his clones. After making his decision, Night Sorrow's clones went to the eastern ice plains of the eastern Xian region and flew toward East Snow Mountain. Night Sorrow didn't use his speed. He flew slowly. Revisiting this place, he was deeply moved. Back then, he had only been a rank 2 or rank 3 cultivator. Now, he was already a top cultivator. A wave of his hand had the power to destroy the world. The Nine Regions world was developing well. There were already groups of cultivators in the Ice Plains Sea, or groups of people seeking opportunities. After Night Sorrow flew past, he naturally released his aura, causing their movements to slow down. Space seemed to have stopped. "It's a great expert," a man said to his companions. "Brother, that's the Realm Lord. It's a pity that the Realm Lord hasn't returned to the Medicine Valley for a long time. The Medicine Valley has disappointed him," a disciple of the Medicine Valley said as he looked in the direction Night Sorrow disappeared. The Medicine Valley did have some problems in the past few years. Look at how the Night Moon Dynasty, which is also related to the Realm Lord, has developed. The Yi family has always been in the pugilistic world, but there are no traces of them. Why? Because they don't use the Realm Lord as their backing, a woman in the group said. Yeah. They don't even wear silk brocades. They're frugal and virtuous. This is the Yi family's upbringing and style, another member said. Let's go. Let's follow the traces left by the Realm Lord. Who knows, we might see him. The Realm Lord wouldn't appear in the eastern ice plains for no reason. East Snow Mountain. The Realm Lord might have gone to East Snow Mountain. That's where the Golden Phoenix used to cultivate. By the time the training team arrived at East Snow Mountain, it was already enveloped by a mountain defense array. At the foot of East Snow Mountain stood a tall stone tablet. East Snow Mountain, Golden Phoenix Training Ground, Night Sorrow. The members of the group understood why Night Sorrow was here. He was here to clear East Snow Mountain's name. In the future, this place would be the training ground of the Eastern Xian Domain Lord, Wu Lingfei. Even if no one was here, other cultivators wouldn't be able to enter or occupy it. World of Trees. On the way, Night Sorrow took out an array diagram and handed it to Wu Lingfei. Auntie Fei, I've dealt with East Snow Mountain. This is the diagram of the protective array. You've dealt with it so quickly? Wu Lingfei looked at Night Sorrow in surprise. My 9 Realms doppelganger accompanied eldest senior brother for a drink. When I had nothing to do, I went to East Snow Mountain and set up a protective array to prevent other cultivators from occupying it. Even if it's only for a few days, Auntie Fei won't be happy. Night Sorrow smiled. Wu Lingfei smiled and nodded. She naturally accepted Night Sorrow's good intentions. We're halfway through the last summer world. We'll be able to see the true body of the world tree soon. Night Sorrow looked ahead. Chapter 2240. Night Sorrow and the other two continued forward. The last summer world was very large. It was even larger than the worlds in the World Zone group. The only difference was that it did not have a real world origin. It was supported by the origin power of the world tree. This was also the characteristic of all the spatial worlds in the periphery of the world tree. They did not have a world origin. If there was a real world origin, cultivators above the king level would not be able to enter. There were no battles as they advanced. This was because the heavenly concubine's strength made some cultivators avoid her, let alone fight her. When they were not far from the spatial barrier of the Sumer world, another battle broke out. It was a crazy rhino-type beast cultivator. The beast cultivator was at the Tribulation 7 Emperor's realm. His combat power was not enough. Naturally, he was just giving away resources and materials. After killing this beast cultivator, Night Sorrow and the other two arrived at the spatial barrier of the Sumer world. However, they did not leave immediately. Instead, they rested for a few days to dissipate the murderous aura on their bodies. After all, they were about to reach the real area where the world tree was. After resting, Night Sorrow stood up and tidied his robe. We can enter the world of trees in this state. As for the murderous aura, it's another matter. As Night Sorrow tore open the spatial barrier, the three of them entered the core world where the world tree was. It was also the last world of the Thousand Realms' Thousand Defense. After entering, Night Sorrow and the other two took a deep breath. The spirit chi in this world was too dense. It was not weaker than the space where the flame lizard was, which was also where the soul-nurturing grass was. It was even stronger. The heavenly concubine said, "We have to be careful. In a world like this, even a pig can cultivate." Night Sorrow nodded. Then, he looked up. Deep in the sky, there was a dense crown of the world tree. The crown extended in all directions and was wrapped in energy. However, the crown was real. There was no strong rejection. Night Sorrow knew that they had passed the first stage. After dealing with all the obstacles, they could get close to the main trunk of the world tree. That was where the tree spirit was. As for whether the problem could be solved or not, it all depended on the attitude of the tree spirit. Heavenly concubine, the world tree should know that we're here. Why doesn't the tree spirit appear directly? Wu Lingfei asked. I don't know the details. The tree crown is only her body. The area with thoughts and intelligence is the main trunk. See us? There are many cultivators in the world of trees. Why would she care who we are? If you don't threaten her, she won't bother, said the heavenly concubine. Hearing heavenly concubine's words, Night Sorrow laughed self-deprecatingly. That's right. She doesn't care who we are. It's not like there aren't any cultivators from the tribulation of 9 emperors in her affiliated worlds. We're nothing special in her eyes. After lamenting for a while, the three of them began to move forward toward the area where the world tree was. In reality, this world wasn't big. However, because it was shrouded in dense origin energy, the range of soul power detection was extremely small. Plus, they couldn't be rash. Therefore, Night Sorrow and the other two advanced very slowly. Otherwise, it wouldn't take them long to fly over. Compared to the last Summer world, the world Night Sorrow and the other two were in had dense spirit energy, but it was much quieter. Night Sorrow and the other two were very careful. The next step was the most crucial one. After working hard for a year, it wouldn't be worth it to make a mistake at the last moment. Unlike what Night Sorrow and the other two expected, they advanced slowly for 1,000 miles. There were no battles and no other cultivators. Cultivators who aren't especially strong can't survive here. The formless pressure is too strong, said the heavenly concubine. But I feel that there's also a sense of vicissitudes and desolation. Feel it carefully and see if you feel the same as me. Night Sorrow closed his eyes and sensed. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, the heavenly concubine and willing concubine began to carefully sense it. They knew that if they hadn't discovered it, Night Sorrow wouldn't have said that. After sensing for a while, the heavenly concubine opened her eyes and willing concubine stopped after a while. How do you feel? Night Sorrow asked the two women. I have to admire you. You can even sense such a faint aura. How did you discover it? The heavenly concubine looked at Night Sorrow and asked because the vicissitudes and desolation aura was very faint. I have the 9-domain world origin beads in my body, so I'm more familiar and sensitive to the aura of origin energy. The origin energy in this world tree is very dense, but in reality, it's still a bit weaker than the 9-domain world origin beads. When I discovered that something was wrong, I carefully sensed it and discovered the problem. Why do you think this happened? Night Sorrow asked. The world tree is still in its infancy. How can it have such an ancient aura? This shouldn't be. The heavenly concubine said with confusion. It seems that there's something we don't know about. Let's slowly walk and see. Night Sorrow said. The three of them continued forward, but in their hearts, they knew that the situation in the world tree was different from what they had expected. After advancing for a while, the heavenly concubine looked at Night Sorrow and said, "I feel a bit tired. Can we rest a bit before continuing?" "It's not a physical exhaustion, it's a mental exhaustion." "Me too." "This is because of the high tension." Night Sorrow nodded. He also felt that he needed to relax. The three of them set up camp. Night Sorrow took out the barbecued meat he had made in the summer world. After heating it up, he took out 2 jars of wine and said, "Relax a bit before we continue." The heavenly concubine and Wu Ling concubine nodded. They were women. Under such circumstances, they naturally relied on Night Sorrow. This was the difference between men and women. Actually, there's nothing to be nervous about. If there's anyone blocking the way, we'll just kill them. We must see the tree spirit of the world tree. After that, we'll talk about other things. Night Sorrow looked at the heavenly concubine and Wu Ling concubine. The heavenly concubine smiled and said, "It's tiring to think too much. Actually, the essence of the matter is the same as what you said. We must see the tree spirit of the world tree. Before that, no matter who blocks the way, we'll kill them all. Yes, we can even kill the cultivators of the tribulation of the 9 emperors." "What are we afraid of? Could it be a group of cultivators of the tribulation of the 9 emperors?" "Obviously not. At most, they'll be a bit stronger." Night Sorrow said. Although he said that, he knew that the evil spirit and guardian of the world tree would definitely be very strong. "Yes, if there's a battle, we'll fight. We shouldn't be the ones being afraid. It's really not a big deal." The heavenly concubine smiled and said. After resting for a while and adjusting his mentality, Night Sorrow continued forward with the heavenly concubine and Wu Ling concubine. Chapter 22:41. Night Sorrow, you can't go through your tribulation here. Why don't we leave first and go to the middle of the space line or the last summer world? You can go through your tribulation there. Heavenly concubine said after seeing Night Sorrow reach a bottleneck. Let's not go through the tribulation for now. The lightning tribulation will only affect my growth. It won't affect my fighting strength much. Night Sorrow shook his head. He didn't want to go through the tribulation. It's good to settle down. Not going through the tribulation won't affect your fighting strength in the short term. Heavenly concubine said. Letting out a breath, Night Sorrow pushed the tribulation to the back of his mind and continued forward. After advancing for another 500 kilometers, a clump of black fog enveloped by essence power appeared. The black fog howled as it charged towards Yishan's team. Night Sorrow, be careful. It's a divine soul unity realm evil cultivator. If I'm not wrong, he's the companion of the world tree. Heavenly concubine's body flashed and appeared in front of Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's soul power vibrated and took Wu Lingfei into the clear sky pagoda. He couldn't do this in the previous Sumera space because the repulsive force would also repel the spatial treasure. Now that he was in the main world where the world tree was, there was no repulsive force. Therefore, Night Sorrow could take Wu Lingfei into the spatial world. Night Sorrow had to be careful. A divine soul unity realm cultivator was too terrifying. A powerful energy shockwave from a powerful attack could cause fatal damage to Wu Lingfei. Night Sorrow put Wu Lingfei away. The rolling black cloud arrived in front of him and Heavenly Concubine. It was a man wrapped in black evil energy. He was very strong. Night Sorrow felt a lot of pressure from this man's aura. Intuitively, Night Sorrow felt that this man was stronger than Mo Zhantian. He should be on par with King Yawu and Tran Hung. You dare to come here? You really don't know life from death. After the black-clothed man roared, he swung his blade and attacked the heavenly concubine. As for Yi Shang, who was at the peak of the Four Emperor tribulation, he ignored him and didn't take him seriously. The heavenly concubine unsheathed her sword and fought with the black-clothed man. After the battle began, the heavenly concubine was at a disadvantage. The black-clothed man's attacks were extremely fast. The black energy's penetrative power was extremely strong. The heavenly concubine's protective Tao domain could not block it. Even the sputtering astral sabers could penetrate it. Night Sorrow, hurry up and leave. He's a gifted evil divine beast, the black horned dragon. The heavenly concubine yelled at the Night Sorrow. She knew that she couldn't take down the black horned dragon. She could hold on for now, but she would definitely lose after a while. After all, her cultivation level was lower than the black horned dragon's. Let's fight together. Night Sorrow's body trembled, and his doppelganger appeared. Then, the two of them charged towards the black horned dragon. Night Sorrow was the one who attacked. His original body used the heavenly samsara halberd to perform the primordial destruction / while his doppelganger used the true reincarnation dragon art. Together, they attacked the black horned dragon. Night Sorrow, hurry up and leave. This is different from before. Seeing that Night Sorrow didn't leave and even attacked, the heavenly concubine was very anxious. No matter how dangerous it is, I, Night Sorrow, don't have the habit of leaving my companions behind. I didn't in the past, and I won't in the future. Night Sorrow turned his head and glanced at the heavenly concubine. Then, he used his power of merit to activate the Human Tao Grand Ceremonies Book of Taoism. He used the Human Emperor's seal to suppress the black horned dragon. At the same time, he also strengthened his body. He was afraid that the rebound force would be too strong and cause his body to collapse. With a boom, Night Sorrow's original body's heavenly samsara halberd hit the black horned dragon's retracted battle saber. Then, he was knocked back. Night Sorrow's original body was knocked back, but his doppelganger came forward. The bloodlust evil-slaying spear carried a black whirlpool of reincarnation energy and stabbed towards the black horned dragon's chest. Ant. After spitting out 2 words, the black horned dragon's left fist smashed towards Night Sorrow's doppelganger's chest. He didn't care about Night Sorrow's bloodlust evil-slaying spear attack. Who do you think you are? Descend, weaken. After glaring at the black horned dragon, Night Sorrow used the deluxe merit monarch's verbal law to weaken the black horned dragon's attack. Then, he used Hadouken with his left hand and continued to attack with the bloodlust evil-slaying spear in his right hand. The heavenly concubine's longsword moved rhythmically and stabbed towards the black horned dragon's head. With a muffled sound, Night Sorrow's left fist aura and the black horned dragon's fist aura collided with each other. There was a boom. After the collision, Night Sorrow's doppelganger's left arm became limp. The flesh inside his skin was completely shattered. Night Sorrow's doppelganger exerted strength in his legs so that his body wouldn't fall back. The bloodlust evil-slaying spear stabbed forward with all its might. It pierced through the black horned dragon's protective energy and stabbed into its chest. Then, the forbidden reincarnation energy rushed into the black horned dragon's body. The black horned dragon's eyes were full of shock. He thought his punch would be able to kill Night Sorrow, but all it did was break Night Sorrow's arm. It didn't kill Night Sorrow, and it didn't even make him fall back. Night Sorrow's real body used space-time realm. In a flash, he appeared in front of the heavenly concubine. The samsara halberd used first destroyed / again to attack the black horned dragon. Horned dragon real body. The black horned dragon roared. Black light flowed across its body. After Night Sorrow's doppelganger's bloodlust evil-slaying spear pierced 3 inches, it couldn't go any further. Its left hand punched towards Night Sorrow's real body as it retreated. He didn't care much about Night Sorrow's attack, but he had to take the heavenly concubine's attack seriously. She was a 9 Emperor's disaster cultivator, and her power was higher than his. Destroy soul / Night Sorrow's real body and doppelganger both used destroy soul / Then, his real body used space-time realm again. The black horned dragon's new punch was much more powerful than the previous one. He had underestimated it before, but now he was going all out. If it hit him, he would be half dead. His real body used space-time realm to retreat. Night Sorrow's doppelganger stomped his feet and rushed forward. He didn't want to give the black horned dragon a chance to get away from the bloodlust evil-slaying spear. Heavenly concubine, attack! Night Sorrow shouted at the heavenly concubine. His doppelganger followed the black horned dragon. The bloodlust evil slaying spear used its body's strength to stab into the black horned dragon's body. The doppelganger continued to attack. Night Sorrow's real body used spacetime realm to dodge the black horned dragon's punch. Then, the Samsara halberd attacked again. This time, it was a projectile. He didn't want to give the black horned dragon a chance to hit his doppelganger. If it did, his doppelganger would be knocked back, and the situation wouldn't be good. Seeing the Samsara halberd flying toward it, the black horned dragon pulled out its left arm and sent the Samsara halberd flying into the void. After the weapon was sent flying, Night Sorrow's real body arrived in front of the black horned dragon. His left arm pulled the black horned dragon's left arm under his armpit. Then, his right hand and left hand came together and controlled the black horned dragon's left arm. Burn! After the real body controlled the black horned dragon's left arm, Night Sorrow's doppelganger's flames appeared. It was a golden flame. It was the burning of blood essence. The virtuous Tao body's blood essence burned to increase its combat power. As the doppelganger's blood essence burned, Night Sorrow's doppelganger's combat power increased. The bloodlust evil slaying spear rushed forward and pierced half a foot into the black horned dragon's body. Then, the true chi in the doppelganger's body rushed into the black horned dragon's body like waves. The black horned dragon's face turned green. He had been paying attention to the heavenly concubine's attack. He didn't think about what Night Sorrow could do. Now, the one who heard him was Night Sorrow. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.